skies from the word go, and that's how it remains effectively throughout much of the day. Some patchy cloud, most likely across East Anglia and the southeast. Kent seeing a fair amount of cloud moving in. But for the north and northwest of Scotland, the cloud actually thins and it turns brighter into the afternoon and warmer as a result. Northeast Scotland, low to mid-20s, low to mid-20s further south in places as well. And it's another fine start to Wednesday. The best of the sunshine on Wednesday morning will be in the far north and west, whilst central and eastern England sees quite a lot of cloud during the morning. That disappears back to the coast during the afternoon, leading to another warm and fine day for many. Thursday's very similar, but on Friday, some showers will return. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, welcome to the programme. Starmer is standing defiant over taking gifts from Lord Ali.
The Prime Minister has suggested he will continue to take donations from the Labour peer and prominent party donor.
After accepting gifts of clothes for himself and his wife, Starmer gave Lord Ali a pass to access Downing Street.
And as the PM shows great interest in Italy's Albania immigration deal, the government has announced £75 million worth of investment for a new border security command.
Disgraced former BBC newsreader Hugh Edwards avoids jail as he's sentenced for accessing indecent images of children.
And in a GB News exclusive, Rotherham rape gang survivors demands deportation for their abusers. Our reporter Charlie Peters has the latest.
And we're asking, should the UK introduce more safe and legal asylum routes? This is as Number 10 says they have no plans to do so.
And in sport this morning, who would have thought that Birmingham City versus Wrexham would be called the Hollywood Derby? But it was last night. The all-new Champions League is back with both Aston Villa and Liverpool playing away tonight. And just when you thought hobby horsing couldn't be topped, aha, speed golf is the future.
It's a little cool out there in places and a bit grey for some, but most will have a sparkling day of September sunshine. And for many, it'll be a similar story tomorrow. Join me later for a full forecast.
It's 6:01. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast. Very good morning to you. So it's all kicking off again with the Prime Minister's apparent penchant for freebies, isn't it? Arsenal tickets. He said yesterday in an interview that he couldn't possibly go to an Arsenal game if it wasn't in hospitality and it wasn't a freebie. And, you know, I'm no big Rishi Sunak fan, but the former Prime Minister used to go to Southampton games all the time, sitting in the stands.
Was he really not getting those for free? Do we know that? I reckon a lot of MPs get a lot of stuff sent their way. It's just the question is whether or not the rules are followed. That's the important thing, isn't it?
So if he goes to a football game, though, you can't just turn... I mean, you said about Rishi would go to Southampton. You can't just, like, turn up, can you, and sit there. Then what about all the entourage that's around the outside and everything? It's not
They
easy.
aren't normal citizens. They just aren't.
Of course they're not.
So
Whether they want to be or not, they're not.
Yeah.
Well, the point is, he can, like with his wife's clothes, the argument is he can afford these things. He's taken 76 grand's worth of freebies over recent years. Concert tickets, Taylor Swift's
I was going to say,
Arsenal
that's the season ticket at Arsenal, isn't it? 76,000 quid?
Yeah. Not far off.
It certainly begs the question. He's obviously not badly off himself. You know, why does he need to? But I'm sure he's not alone. This isn't me defending him. I'm just saying, for me, the issue is, has he broken the rules? Because that's what he's a real stickler for. Let's find out. You know, at the moment, he's insisting he's stuck to them. Let's dig into that story now. We are focusing on it as our lead. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer saying it is very important that the rules are followed amid this ongoing donation row.
The Conservatives have called for an investigation into the Prime Minister's failure to declare significant donations from Lord Ali.
And this comes after it was revealed that the Labour peer lent Sir Keir Starmer his house at times during the general election.
Media commentator and former editor of the Sunday Mirror, Paul Connew, joins us now. Good morning, Paul. What do you make of all this, then? Is it fair for the PM and other high-profile celebs to be gifted freebies in this way? Or, as some are suggesting, are the optics all a bit rotten, especially at a time when Labour are swiping pensioners' fuel payments?
Well, I'm a Labour supporter, but I'm very uneasy with this one. I think it's... if we were playing tennis, it would be an unforced error by the Prime Minister. That said, it's not the biggest scandal in political history, and on the freebie front, I still think Keir Starmer is some way behind a certain Boris Johnson when it comes to accepting lavish freebies and forgetting to declare them.
Well, let's talk about the declaring element, because yesterday the Prime Minister was asked about this, rather embarrassingly, whilst he was at this bilateral in Italy, focusing on immigration. But he was absolutely determined that his team had proactively gone out and checked and double-checked the rules, not once, but twice, and he was satisfied that all the rules had been followed. So whilst people might feel uncomfortable with the idea, and this may not be a very Labour thing to do, given that they're supposed to be, you know, the working man's party, if he's followed the rules and this investigation has found, you know, finds that he has, I suppose that there's nothing more to be said about it. We just have to see what happens from this investigation, don't we?
Indeed. I mean, the investigation will report back. The issue seems to be that it was probably not a breach of the rules, but possibly a little late in declaring it. We'll wait and see. But that doesn't alter my view that this is an unforced error. At a time when you are declaring that the country is in huge economic problems, and you are cutting, the pension and fuel allowance for pensioners. This isn't a good look. Obviously, the Tories are going to, demanding an investigation and perhaps getting one, but a little hypocritical given their history. As I say, Boris Johnson's record of freebies and all those PPE contracts to cronies. So I think the public, but also, while they might think this is a bit rich, from pun intended, by Starmer, I think they would also think it pales into insignificance compared to what the former government were guilty of.
Paul, reports suggest Sir Keir Starmer accepted £76,000 worth of entertainment, clothes and similar freebies from UK donors since the 2019 general election, and that is more than any other MP, according to research from the FT. So you mentioned Boris Johnson, but apparently not. But isn't the point here, Paul, the wider point, that Labour are meant to be holier than thou? They've been banging on for years about how they'll do things properly, and you mentioned he's made an unforced error. I'd argue it's a litany of double faults, because you mentioned cronyism as well. Labour have packed the civil service, which is meant to be politically neutral, with former aides, former donors, Labour Together, think tank staffers. They're doing exactly the same things that they accused the Tories of for years.
That's, to a degree, I agree with that, but let's also remember David Cameron on a certain green cell. So, I think what it is doing, whether you voted Labour or voted Tory, I think in a sense, it's yet another bullet in the terms of public confidence in politicians, and that's the unfortunate thing.
And it distracts from policy. There are big announcements that have come out of Labour in the last 24 hours, £75 million border security investment, and this is designed to pave the way for what they're calling an autumn immigration crime crackdown. They've hired this new top man to the job, haven't they? Martin, I forget his surname now, Hewitt, the new Border Security Council chief. We've had that. We've also got the business secretary doubling down on working from home, saying that it boosts productivity, and yet nobody's talking about that. They're talking about what Lady Starmer was wearing, and as the Conservatives have described it, brazenly, let me use this quote because it was rather eloquently put, it's shocking that Lady Starmer thought it acceptable to strut her way through London Fashion Week adorned in free designer swag the day after it was revealed Starmer had failed to declare donations for clothing gifted to his wife.
Well, this morning's Daily Mail, obviously it leads on the Hugh Edwards case, but above that, of course, is that picture of Lady Starmer arriving. And yesterday, the Mail led off on her clothes issue until I think they changed it later on, when news of Donald Trump's, the assassination bid on Donald Trump came up. So the Mail have got a bit of a fixation on this one, but I think the public don't like it. I accept that as a Labour supporter, and I think it isn't a good look. I haven't got a problem with the Prime Minister accepting freebies at Arsenal, a football club he's long supported, because I think that is valid. And let's face it, we're also guilty. Lots of journalists accept freebies, to events when they're not covering it. You'll find editors sitting at a Beyonce concert, and they haven't paid for the ticket. So we've also in the media got to be a little bit realistic about our own hypocrisy.
But Paul, sorry to interject. Some would say, A, we're not making government policy which affects millions of lives, and B, journalists are under strict rules under the Bribery Act, and most recently in latter years since Leveson. So Keir Starmer's gone to, in recent weeks, a Taylor Swift concert, Arsenal games, Doncaster racecourse.
Enter into this. It's about whether we accept freebies, to things like concerts. Those aren't things that are going to actually. We're not reporting on them. The showbiz journalists will be there reporting. But editors will be there just to enjoy the event. And I don't think that stinks. But we have to be careful about how far we take the criticism of the Starmers. As I say, I think they have made a mistake, and if I bumped into Keir Starmer tomorrow, I'd tell him so.
I suppose the question is, what does Lord Ali get out of it, given that he's already a peer, he has full access to the Lords? Why did he need or want a Downing Street pass? And, you know, some of the papers are reporting that he actually wields more power than some government ministers. That can't be right, can it?
It can't be right if true, but I've got my doubts about the truth of that. I mean, all governments sometimes bring in outsiders, you know, who they value, their advice, etc. And as I understand it, Lord Ali has no longer got that pass in any case. But, you know, Lord Ali is a long-time Labour supporter, a self-made man, Labour supporter, long before Labour had any chance of getting back into government. So I'm not obsessed about the Lord Ali situation generally. I just don't think the Prime Minister and his wife, both of whom are high earners, need someone else to provide their wardrobe.
I think it'd just be easier, Paul, if we just scrapped all sorts of gifts and donations for politicians, no? It's just lobbying, surely. It's, when all is said and done, it's just lobbying, which I think is abhorrent anyway.
Well, whether it's lobbying or not, the suspicion of lobbying is there in the public psyche. So, yeah, I wouldn't have a problem if that were if taking any sort of gifts was outlawed as a policy. But it's not a one-sided thing. I think it cuts across the political spectrum.
Just a final point on policy. We're expecting a big speech today from the Foreign Secretary, this time focusing on climate change. He's addressing a global clean power alliance, where he's expected to say that climate change is a more fundamental threat than terrorism. Presumably that means, you know, similar resources will be ploughed into it.
Well, climate change is a huge issue, and I think some of the most dangerous people are climate change deniers, and that includes somebody I used to know quite well called Donald Trump. But we have to balance this. But climate change is crucial, you know, and in a global sense, and in the future of the planet, it certainly is a bigger threat than terrorism, which is not to underplay the threat of terrorism, of course, either.
OK.
All right, Paul Connew, media commentator, former editor of the Sunday Mirror, thank you for joining us so early this morning.
Right, 6:12. It is early indeed. Let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Junior doctors have voted to accept a government pay deal worth a rise of 22.3% on average over 2 years. The British Medical Association thanked junior doctors in England for voting, with 66% of them in favour of the deal.
The FBI has given an update on the apparent assassination attempt of Donald Trump, saying they view it as extremely serious and are determined to provide answers. The Secret Service says they're providing Mr. Trump with the highest level of protection, adding also that the suspected gunman did not fire any shots. 58-year-old Ryan Ruth has appeared in a Florida court charged with federal gun crimes. According to phone records, Ruth was in the wooded area near Trump's golf course for 12 hours, lying in wait.
And elsewhere, the shipyard that built the Titanic is struggling to stay afloat. Shipbuilding company Harland & Wolff has confirmed the business is set to be placed into administration for the second time in 5 years. Its main yard is in Belfast, best known for building the Titanic, with other operations in Appledore in England and Methil and Arnish in Scotland.
The rapper-turned-music mogul P. Diddy's been arrested, according to the US Attorney for the Southern District of New York. The 54-year-old was arrested at the Park Hyatt Hotel in New York, although it's unclear precisely on what charges. The District Attorney, Damian Williams, has said it was based on a sealed indictment and is expecting to have more to say when the document is unsealed.
Are you on it with your eating, healthy eating?
Yeah, I really am at the moment, yeah. I did my Peloton bicycle yesterday.
Oh, you love the Peloton,
Got my hard-boiled egg for breakfast. What about you?
Yeah, I try and be conscious about what I'm eating. Sometimes I feel like if I'm not training enough, I think, what's the point of eating properly as well? If I'm off the wagon, I'm off the wagon, basically.
Oh, right, you go for it.
Yeah.
But weren't you taking your electrolytes the other night to try and sort of get yourself all ready for the morning?
Yeah, so I took a little sachet of electrolytes, which cyclists normally use. I took one before bed, and I woke up feeling a bit better than normal.
I need to try that.
Yeah, I've got a few spare sachets if you want
Perfect.
some.
I'll have one of those in the ad break. Don't go anywhere whilst we have a quick break. After that, we're going to be talking about a typical shopping basket, whether or not it should be or could be getting healthier. I see the link now.
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
What prompted you to go on your incredible journey?
Well, you know, I was fighting my own demons at the time, you know, before I started the walk, and it had been a long journey, if you like. And, you know, I knew that I needed to make a change, and my daughter had just flown the nest. I was a single parent before this, and previous to that, I was ex-parachute regiment. And I knew that I needed to make a change, because if I didn't, I'm not sure where I would have been now, if that makes sense. So, yeah, something just came into my head at the very end of July and said, look, go and walk the UK coastline. And that's exactly what I did. And 6 years later, we've just finished.
You met your missus on the journey as well, didn't you? So truly, Chris, a transformative journey for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, you step into the unknown like that, you know, you have no idea how things are going to work out. You go out with so little expectation, but only really with the aim to, you know, for me personally, to come back feeling a lot better than what I was before I left. And that certainly succeeded. So everything that happened along that journey was one big learning curve, and I got to learn a lot about myself, a lot about, you know, the public and people, and yeah, it was just a life-changing transformation for me. And you know, I learned so much, and I know what I want to do with the rest of my life as a result of it. And I met the most amazing people, and you know, I worked hard. 6 years of carrying your house on your back isn't the easiest feat in the world, I can promise you that, but it was worth every single step, because I rescued a dog along the way. I met my now fiance Kate Barron along the way, and we had a baby together along the way as well. So to start in the position that I did and then end up with all of that coming over the line with me was just something that I never expected, and I couldn't have dreamed it up, to be honest.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Right, food and drink manufacturers apparently have reduced salt by 1/3 and reduced sugar and calories by 1/4 in their food since 2015. That's according to a new study.
Yeah, see, I find that hard to believe when you just walk down the street and you see the sort of general obesity on British streets these days. I swear it's on the rise. Well, in 2023, more than £160 million was invested into researching and developing healthier products, including new recipes and changing portion sizes.
The Food and Drinks Federation are now calling on the government to give more support to reformulation efforts, which I guess reformulation is just adapting the ingredients of products.
Well, yeah, trying to make it less salty and
less delicious.
Carcinogenic.
Yeah.
So are Brits becoming healthier? Let's speak to nutritionist and columnist Amanda Ursell. Good morning, good to speak to you. Do you share my sort of, I don't know, sort of scepticism about all of this? I mean, if you read this morning, you'd think, wow, gosh, Brits are, what a healthy little population we are. And yet I don't get that feeling when I walk around the streets of Britain.
Well, you actually put your finger on the button, really, to be honest, because although this study was done from 2015, from that very year, we've also had a rise in the number of people living with obesity and overweight. So it's very interesting what you said about going down the high street, because it may be true that maybe they have found that the amount of calories, fat, sugar, salt and so on has reduced in certain shopping baskets. But people are still in a positive energy balance, which means that they are gaining, that we're gaining weight as a nation. So what's happening? Well, actually, walking down the high street is a great example of where things might be going wrong, because if you look around, there literally are outlets all over the place where you can pop in and have food and drink outside of the home. So shopping basket reflects what we're taking into the home, but it's outside of the home that we've really got to take a really hard look at what's happening. We've got chicken shops and near schools, we've got corner shops everywhere, and we've got food being pushed at us left, right and centre, literally 24 hours a day. So the food industry, I think, have made good, bold steps, but we've got so much further to go. And we've got so many different people and organisations that need to be engaged in this kind of reversing the trends, because we have increased in our body weight since back in the 1990s, when John Major's government tried to sort this out. So we've had policies and plans and strategies galore ever since I qualified as a dietitian, which was many years ago, and nothing's really worked. So what do we do going forward? It's great that the food industry are involved. I think this is the first time they do seem to have taken it really seriously with reformulation, but there's such a bigger picture than that.
Amanda, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you'll know more than me, but I get the feeling things like salt and sugar have been demonised far too much, because, you're replacing sugars with artificial sweeteners, for example, which many studies have shown are far more harmful, not least because they apparently trick the body into thinking they're about to get calories and you get an insulin spike regardless. I'm more concerned, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm more concerned with things like seed oils and fried food and deep fried food.
Well, I think, again, you make a good point. I mean, when we start looking at individual sources of nutrients and energy, as the general public, it kind of focuses us on one area. So we think about salt and we obsess about that for a while, and then we think about sugar and we obsess about that. When actually looking at the overall picture, like looking at the types of foods we're eating, like you just mentioned, fried foods, for example, if we think about the types of foods we're eating, that's a sort of more holistic way of looking at it. And the government does have a really good Eat Well guide, which shows us quite clearly how we can proportion our food throughout the day in terms of fruit and vegetables and starchy carbs and a bit of protein. And it shows us how we can structure our day's food to make it a healthy overall balance. And if we could do that as a nation, if we could just step back and think of the types of foods that we're eating as part of a balanced style overall, then we would not only help to meet sustainability goals, as it happens, because there's plenty of CO2 emissions coming from the food industry, but we would also be shifting the balance of nutrients in a way that was much better for our bodies and help to reduce all of those things that the food industry has said that they're reducing in our shopping baskets through reformulation. So I think simplifying the message in some ways sounds counterintuitive, but actually is much easier to digest and understand as a member of the public.
It's good that we're having these conversations, even if we aren't seeing these improvements yet in people's sort of weight. This obesity crisis is still very much gripping us. People are becoming more aware of concepts like the blue zone, these countries in the world where people are living to 100, they are eating butter and drinking wine every day, and yet they're not obese. Why? People are having these conversations and trying to get under the bonnet of what we're doing wrong, frankly, in most Western societies. I mean, what's your take on that? What do you think's the fundamental thing that's going to shift us to being, slim and healthy? I suppose activity and eating less.
Well, certainly your point about the blue zone. If you look at, we happen to have the Eat Well guide, which is our government's pictorial demonstration of how we can eat well and in a balanced way. And if you look at all those countries in the blue zone, they have their own national version of that. And it's very similar. So if we could just shift back to that style of eating, probably like our grandparents, our great-grandparents were eating, where we had more fruit and veg, we had starchy carbs, we had a little bit of protein, and that's kind of what they do in these blue zone countries even now. And shifting back to that style and talking to children from really the youngest age, not in a scary way, but I've done a lot of work in schools where you if you talk to children about the sustainability of the way in which we eat. So we talk about good for the planet, good for you. They get that. And that's a motivation which takes it away from when you're talking to children about tooth decay and heart disease. That's just like, well, what does that mean? But if you start talking to children, which is where we've got to get to, really, to shift things in the long term, then they engage with that kind of message. But it's much more complex than that. Obviously, at a societal level, we need to be doing so much and engaging whether it's midwives, health visitors, nurses, doctors, everybody in the health arena that's touching people when they come in to see them.
Okay.
We need to get everybody singing off the same hymn sheet.
All right, Amanda Russell, nutritionist and columnist, thank you for joining us this morning.
You.
I'm going to go and get a sausage roll during the break.
Stop it. It's petrol stations as well.
Yeah.
You know, if you're feeling remotely peckish and you go to pay for petrol, you're bombarded with chocolate bars and...
You can't get anything decent at a petrol station,
no, you
can
can't get hard-boiled egg.
No. A bit boring, though, hard-boiled egg.
Well, do you know, it's just filling
Protein.
and it's good protein, so it's a good way to get yourself through a craving. But
do you
anyway.
let your kids have sweets?
I'm quite strict with what my kids eat, but then you can't get away from it. I mean, every single time there's a birthday in school, they have Haribo and there's cake sales. I'm always surprised, actually, that schools that are actually, you know, the bastions of learning and all the rest of it are so full of rubbish when it comes to their diet.
Same with hospitals as well. You go into a hospital, vending machines full of just absolute rot.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre because food has a massive part to play in getting better and, you know, fueling your body.
Do your kids have sweets?
Yeah, they do. I don't mind so much. I had
a sweet tooth.
Well, when I was a child, I had loads of sweets.
Did you?
I grew up eating
didn't have
just
any.
insane amounts of chocolate and sweets. And, you know, my boys run around a lot, they're active.
Yeah,
so I just think, why make life miserable for them?
Yeah.
Just brush your teeth. And I think it's
Yeah,
okay.
well, that's the key.
Yeah.
Right, there we go. We've solved that problem, haven't we? Let's see if we can solve the weather. Maybe we don't need to. It's looking fine out there. Here's Alex Deakin.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sparkling day of sunshine for most of us. It is a bit cool out there, first thing, and it is a bit grey in a few spots, but the mist and the low cloud should tend to clear away. The breeze is picking up a little bit across Kent and along the south coast, and it's not gloriously sunny everywhere. There is quite a bit of thicker cloud across parts of northern Scotland, with even a little bit of rain and drizzle here and there. But for most places, it is a day of September sunshine, and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine by this afternoon. Certainly warmer than last week, 19, 20, getting into the low 20s in a few spots across the southeast and probably parts of the northwest as well, though there will be still quite a bit of thick cloud across the Northern Isles, especially Shetland, well into the evening time. A little bit of drizzly rain here and quite cloudy at times over the Western Isles, but much of the mainland of Scotland dry, fine and sunny. Same goes for Northern Ireland. Plenty of sunshine here lasting well into this evening, and much of England and Wales too. As the easterly breeze starts to pick up, we could just start to see a bit more cloud coming into parts of East Anglia and across the southeast in general. That will increase as we go through the night, so turning quite cloudy across these eastern areas. Some mist and fog likely through the night as well, but the thicker cloud and the rain and drizzle should clear away from Shetland, and the vast majority having a dry night. Still quite cool, temperatures well down into single figures, certainly in some rural spots. The nights, though, will get a bit warmer as we go through the rest of this week. So a bit of a grey start, maybe even parts of Wales starting a bit drab tomorrow, but I'm pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will tend to melt away by late morning at the latest, and that will again reveal quite a bit of sunshine tomorrow. Some of these eastern coasts may stay a little misty, more of a breeze across the south tomorrow again, so perhaps feeling cooler in that breeze, but again in the sunshine, temperatures likely to get into the low 20s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I love Your Say, GB News Your Say. Everyone's getting on there. You tell your co-presenter, Isabel, that electrolytes are as bad as sugar.
Are they? I don't buy that. Sorry, Mr. Bailey. Good morning to you. What's everyone else said? Maybe we should read some more. Oh, Alan, you said use smaller plates, avoid sugar and trans fats. That's all most people have to do for a good start anyway. Yeah, and just, I guess, look, again, I'm not an expert, but just maybe move more, walk more.
Moderation. Yeah, don't binge, drink or eat.
But also, I also think just don't get too obsessed by it all either. Just, you know, life's there to be enjoyed, life's short. Just try and stay healthy and enjoy your food. You made a great point about the med diet.
Yeah,
you know,
blue zones, they have wine every day and cheese and trans fats and all these things, but...
And butter and...
But they live close to their children You know,
Yeah.
the generations stay close. They eat vegetables that have been grown close to them, so that's really good for your microbiome and your gut health, which we know is really linked to your mental health, which we know is really linked to prolonging life, and also all the meat and things, chickens grown locally. It's just kind of going back to the old ways, but how can you do that in a big city?
We should start a nutrition show or something.
Oh, no, sorry.
We should pitch it
You
to
should have
the,
started me off
to
on
the
the blue
GB News
zones.
powers.
Right, let's talk about the Great British Giveaway, because my goodness me, £35,000, that would go some way to helping you eat healthily for a whole year.
Yeah, that'll do a decent shop at M&S or Waitrose or somewhere,
Yeah.
or maybe not. Yeah, it's £3,000 cash in your bank account each month, tax-free for the next year. Here's all the details you need to win.
Good luck.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning. Big problems in West Yorkshire continue this morning. The Halifax Road remains closed through Buttershaw, so just to the southwest of Bradford. Investigation work is still taking place outside the Tesco following a serious accident last night. On Merseyside, to the north of Magole, at Lydia, the Southport Road, that's shut for a police investigation off the junction at Moss Lane. And in Essex, the A12 has been closed southbound from junction 26 to 25 off the A120 southwest of Colchester for overrunning roadworks. In Surrey at Sunbury-on-Thames, the A308 Staines Road West, that's closed eastbound for emergency gas repair works. And in South London, the Croxted Road is shut at Dulwich for emergency water main repairs. And London Overground trains are suspended New Cross Gate to Crystal Palace and West Croydon because of fire alert at Brockley. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Oh, sorry.
I have to say, I was actually a bit worried about you this morning, Coity.
Why?
I thought you'd overslept, because normally when I come
That's
out
the
for
second
makeup...
time.
I know.
You've
Well,
done it in a
normally...
week.
Well, you told me the other day that you didn't set an alarm, and luckily your
that's
body
right.
woke you up.
That's right.
And as I came out of makeup this morning, he wasn't where he's normally sitting. So I had a panic, and I tried calling you,
I'm
and I
usually laying on the
messaged
floor
you.
at that point. aren't you?
You know, good job I'm here. But anyway, you were fine.
We were calling Aidan McGee.
Oh,
We were saying,
really?
quick, get Aidan on standby.
So anyway,
you're here.
everything was fine. I just had a little parking problem, but
Okay.
everything was fine.
Oh,
so,
never mind.
So you come running past at this time in the morning, and then you know, not that I was looking suspicious anyway at all, in the West End, running at great speed as I'm running away from somewhere. Anyway, should we talk about the Hollywood Derby?
Oh, yeah, the Derby.
It's the Derby. I mean, you wouldn't think, I did say this earlier, League One, that Birmingham City versus Wrexham would be the most talked about game of soccer. By the way, Soccer, you know, Americans will call football soccer.
Yeah.
Do you know why it's called soccer?
No.
Because they've got American football.
No, well, no, but do you know where the name
the
soccer
name.
comes from?
Soccer.
Is it from socking it?
Oh, from socks. To do with socks.
It's actually an English phrase anyway. It's an abbreviation of association football, shortened to soccer. How that works, I don't know, but association, and that's how the word soccer has come about.
I bet you're good in a pub quiz.
Oh, I tell you what.
That kind of tidbit.
The thing is, though, what gives it away is that I go, oh, I know this one, and I say it too loud, and then everybody else gets it at the same time. But yeah, that's so anyway. So Americans call it they soccer, but it's a British phrase anyway. So it's just short for association football, which is then difference between association football and rugby football, and that was how it all came about back in the 1800s. Your eyes are glazing over if you're right now.
I need another coffee for this.
Birmingham 3, Wrexham 1. So the reason we call it the Hollywood Derby is that it's the owners. Now, Tom Brady, the greatest American football player, NFL gridiron player of all time, part owner of Birmingham City, so he's giving interviews. Then also there's Rob McElhenney there, and that's Tom Brady's back there on the left-hand side. Collar up, very cool, very
mega rich, isn't he? Loaded.
Yeah, unbelievably.
Is he still married to Giselle Bundchen, the supermodel, or are they estranged? I don't know. I just clock him because I know he's with her.
She's been calling me, so I don't think there's... So there's David Beckham there on the right, so everybody was
everyone
there.
looks small next to Brady.
I don't know, yeah, he does look a little bit short, doesn't he, there? But it's because I think Brady is there standing up, looking very proud of his Birmingham side. But anyway, the score... Well, Wrexham went 1-0 up. Away at Birmingham, and then Birmingham came back and won 3-1, and they're both top of... Well, I say they both are. Birmingham top, they're both on 13 points. So is it Wrexham going to then have their third promotion on the trot? Who knows how far this is going to go?
Just goes to show there's life outside the Premier League. I've always said the Championship, at least, is a very exciting league.
It is incredibly.
So hard to get out of, so competitive.
Yeah. It gets coverage, but then when we look at Wrexham... It's obviously we know about all the coverage that because you watched it, didn't you? You saw the stuff with.
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Ryan Reynolds.
The Netflix doc. Yeah.
And so anyway, they're unbeaten in 9 now, Birmingham City. So things are changing for them. Champions League happens tonight. If we go up quite a few leagues, that's a future something for Wrexham to look forward to. 36, so this is the change now in the Champions League. There's 36 teams. Every team has got 8 matches to play, 4 home, 4 away. The top 8 will go through to the round of 16. The eyes are glazing over again. The 9 to 24, if you come in that place, then you go into a playoff round and there'll be 8 knockouts.
OK.
Is he repeating
too many
exactly
teams.
what I just said?
If you get into that round, there'll be 8 knockouts.
Correct, absolutely. So anyway, we've got 2 British teams playing tonight. Aston Villa play what's the greatest name of a football team in the world? Young Boys. Young Boys of Bern, the Swiss Young Boys.
It's just you were telling me about a stadium earlier. I thought that was coming out.
Yeah, you know what? I'd love to be able to tell you the name of the stadium, but I'll be taken off. I would.
Ofcom won't allow it.
Young Boys. Is Stu Edwards a fan?
Stop it.
I'll give you the name of the stadium, which will probably glaze. No, I can't even tell you. I'll think of a way of telling you what it is. But anyway, let's listen to Unai Emery, the manager of Aston Villa, who will be playing, well, his team playing Young Boys in Switzerland. This is what Unai Emery had to say yesterday.
It's a good moment for the club. After a long time playing again Champions League, tomorrow we are going to start. Hopefully we can keep it for a long time again. And it's really our challenge. And my own challenge is after to get Europe. Last year we got it playing in Conference League. Is now in Champions League. Try to keep it.
I think we'll have subtitles next time we run that. Is that all right? I think we got the most of it.
His English was always... I felt sorry for Unai Emery when he was at Arsenal because people used to take the mick out of his English all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was out of order. And also, if he was the manager, if he'd had more time, he probably would have had success.
Decent manager.
Yeah. He's doing fantastic work, Aston Villa. So Champions League for them. Liverpool are away at AC Milan. Arne Slot, we'll hear from him a little bit later, who celebrates his 46th birthday today, by the way.
Fresh off the back of losing to Forest at home, 1-0.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely right. Well, shall we listen to him?
Yeah.
Because that's what he talks about. Arne Slot, because after, like Ben said, lost to Forest at the weekend, going into AC Milan, what does Arne say about it?
Last Saturday, we didn't do as many things good as we did against United, but there were still a few things that went quite well.
but it was a total different game, and that's also for tomorrow. I expect a complete different game against Milan, with the type of players they have and the playing style that manager has compared to Nottingham Forest. But we should be disappointed if you lose a home game against Nottingham Forest and you play for and you work for Liverpool. If you're not disappointed.
And back tonight, and Arne Slot, 46. You think he looks 46?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 46.
Maybe a bit.
I've got
on the
more
older
birthdays
side.
for you a little bit later.
Oh, yeah, I love those.
Do you want to do the new future of sport?
Yeah.
Do the speed golf?
Yeah.
Have a look at this, see what you think of this, because we did hobby horsing yesterday. Always looking for the future of sport. Will Major won the British Speed Golf Championships at Sunningdale Heath Golf Club. Basically, what you do is you play your shot and then you run. So it's not only how many shots you go round in. Look at this. It's how quick you actually get round the course. Now, the winner went round. I mean, this is unbelievable. Look at this guy. So
Wowzers. How many holes have they got to get round?
Look, off he goes.
And off
there
he
we
trots.
are.
He hasn't even got a caddy.
It's incredible. Yeah, the thing is, if your caddy could slow you down. First round, the winner, which is Will Major, he scored, 69, which is a great score anyway, playing 18 holes. He got round the whole 18 in 26 minutes and 54 seconds. Second round, he hit a 65, which is just an unbelievable score in 27 minutes. The fastest, they went round the whole golf course in 23 minutes and 21 seconds. So the way you do it, you play your shot, you run on to the next one, so it's based on your score and also your time.
I don't know, Paul. Everyone's always trying to be wacky all the time, aren't they? And just,
What's wrong with good old-fashioned
bit
golf?
weird.
As it was always said, golf is a good walk spoiled. So they've really spoiled it there by running. It's supposed to be sedate, relaxing, have a chat, have a laugh, and enjoy it. But there you go.
A bit like the sport segment on the breakfast programme.
Yes.
Sedate, relaxing, enjoyable.
Exactly. That's
what we're aiming for.
Exactly.
On that note, we say ta-ra.
By the way, Ben has seen the name of the stadium where young boys of Burn play.
Your say have clocked it as well. Everyone's talking about it on there, but I still don't want to say it out loud.
OK.
No, I've used up my risky jokes for the morning.
It's something. Thank you, Paul. Dorf Stadium.
Yeah, Google it.
Or just go on to your say.
Right, thank you, Paul.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Still to come, we'll be discussing the front pages, not least this story. Hugh Edwards, he was sentenced yesterday. Nicky Hodgson and Alex Armstrong will be getting stuck into that. Was it enough? The suspended sentence for 6 months? I'd argue not, but we'll see what they have to say. This is GB News Breakfast with Ben and Isabel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Many happy memories, and 9 in 10 Brits say certain foods evoke feelings of childhood nostalgia, with the mousse-like powdered dessert, Angel Delight, the most loved. Joining us now...
Surprised by that.
Yeah, well, Angel Delight.
I'm surprised it's number one. Yes, very surprised. Well, to talk us through all of this is creator of the Crazy Sexy Food podcast, Hannah Harley-Young. Morning.
Hi. I've brought a selection of things that really define my childhood, particularly the Viennetta ice cream. And I have brought you some butterscotch Angel Delight.
Yay!
I'm going to expose myself live on camera and say that I've never tried Angel Delight.
Hannah?
I know. I don't know what that says about me.
I thought that was apple puree, actually. I'm so excited. Is it good? Here we go.
My goodness.
Did I make it okay?
Oh, yeah. But to be fair, Hannah, it's not that hard to make.
Well,
It's
what
nice.
is it, though? That's what's so funny about Angel Delight.
It's chemicals. It's just chemicals in a bag.
I mean, it's a load of additives, which, I mean, one thing that's also really interesting about all these nostalgic foods when you look at them is that a lot of things have been discontinued over the years.
Oh, dear.
So it makes you wonder, how did this one kind of get through the cracks?
Angel Delight came out number one, didn't it?
It did come out as number one. And also sort of in the top 5 was fish and chips, something I still eat today. Fish fingers, still a staple of my diet. Mr. Whippy, in that same survey, they said that 95% of people find that a taste from their childhood will take them back more than looking at a photo. And that's something that's really interesting for me, and it's the basis of everything that I do, and the reason really why I set up Crazy Sexy Food, or one of the reasons, should I say, was that I love this concept of memories of food. You know, I've interviewed hundreds of people over the past 5 years, And when I get to that question, you actually see their face relaxing, and there's something that it evokes emotion.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're taking a look through the newspaper front pages this morning, starting with The Sun, who, of course, are leading on Hugh Edwards. They've been leading very much with this story, and they're talking about a suspended sentence over child sex abuse images, describing it as sickening.
The Daily Mirror also leads on that story, with the BBC saying he, Hugh Edwards, betrayed audiences.
The Telegraph reporting that the Prime Minister faces an investigation after accepting gifts from a millionaire donor who was later given a pass to access number 10.
And the Financial Times leads with Sir Keir Starmer eyeing up Italy's asylum and migration model after his meeting with the Italian PM yesterday.
And finally, The Times is leading with the junior doctors accepting a 22% pay rise, but saying that this will not be the end of the matter.
Joining us now to go through all that and more is Nikki Hodgson and Alex Armstrong. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
I guess we start with the obvious Hugh Edwards on the front pages of all the papers this morning. 6-month suspended sentence, Alex. Justice done?
Yeah, well, we can't avoid this topic today, unfortunately, can we? In my opinion, justice is not done, and I know that millions of Brits in this country are going to wake up today with seeing these headlines and feel that there is not a justice has not been served on this case. Of course, some of the things we've heard in the courts about some of the offences that he's been found guilty of, including opening a folder with child abuse images and writing it was, in quotes, amazing, the pictures that he was sent. It's just going to sicken the nation this morning. So I think the Sun and the Daily Mail have got this absolutely right. I just feel like I understand there's an argument to be made here that this is the same sentence that other people of this crime would be put down for, would be sent down for, but I just don't think this is really the kind of look that our country and British people will really, really expect from a crime like this. They would want to see a custodial sentence. They'd want to see someone go down into prison for this. And there are people who have been sent down for a lot less over the last few months. We've seen the keyboard warriors, and I'm not excusing their whatever they wrote on social media, just to be very, very clear. But I think we need to have some deep introspection in our country about our justice system, and we should look at rewriting laws if that is why he's not going down.
Well, we don't imprison people that commit this crime. We nearly always give them suspended sentences for various reasons. And one of the factors here would be that he would have been a target in prison. I wonder if that's what the...
So?
Well,
so what?
But then we know that happens routinely. That costs the taxpayer more money. If you've got to put somebody in isolation because everybody else is trying to kill them, which is what happens.
Well, I think I'd argue most taxpayers would probably have no problem with putting him in prison.
The reason he wasn't given a custodial sentence was because it was following the sentencing guidelines for the tier of paedophile, frankly, that he was. He didn't create the images, he didn't send the images, he opened them in mitigation. His defence explained that, yes, he'd entered an early plea, which is supposed to save taxpayers loads of money in not needing a jury, but he also, he actually allegedly said, please don't send me any underage images. He was seriously underwell with a significant mental health problem. None of this will make people feel better.
Yes.
I have a child the age of the worst images. These are an 8-year-old son. It horrifies and disgusts me. But, the judge hasn't done anything wrong. He was a first-time offender.
And I agree. And so that comes back to Alex's point about maybe it's time for a discussion about how we actually punish people that do this. And the other thing that I just want to say is that, the NSPCC estimates that 1 in 20 children will be sexually abused. That is a boggling statistic. And the danger with a story like this is that we make out that Hugh Edwards is an anomaly, that he's on the outskirts, that he's a monster, that he's nothing like anybody else. And the reality is we have a massive problem with child sexual abuse in this country.
Yeah, I think the reality is that people are waking up to see this is how the court, this is how the justice system works for people who have been accused of paedophilia on this tier. That's what people are waking up to now, going, oh, wow, that's actually what the sentence would be. And I don't think Brits are going to be happy with that sentence. En masse, I think you'll find the vast majority of people will say he should have gone down for something. And I get, you know, Ben, you're saying that you don't care if he goes to prison. I don't care either, actually.
I don't care if he's bashed up in prison. Why should I?
I understand people they're looking after his health, but what about the safety of the children?
Well, that's what I wanted to say. The 8-year-old or 7-year-old, whatever, the 7 to 9-year-old boy, the youngest one, and the images that he was accessing. What's happened to him? And what sort of support is he being given in all of this? The CPS yesterday saying that accessing, which is what he did, indecent images of children perpetuates the sexual exploitation of them, which has deep, long-lasting trauma for these victims. It's terrible.
Yeah. And also the mitigation in his defence, I was just absolutely stunned, and what an insult to the victims as well. He was saying in his defence that because he didn't get into Oxford and had to study at Cardiff, he felt inferior at the BBC, and that played a part in his mental health deterioration. He had an abusive father. You know, so what? Everybody goes through tough childhoods.
Everyone at the BBC has the same.
That doesn't make you a paedophile, unfortunately, does it? That's the reality.
I'm not Oxford reject. I've been dealing with my whole life.
But you're not a paedophile.
No, quite.
Right, let's talk about junior doctors, something that's going to get us equally hot under the collar, I suspect. This is inside the Daily Mail. 22% pay hike for junior doctors. They don't want to be called junior doctors anymore. From tomorrow, they will be described as resident doctors to reflect their experience and seniority, not quite consultants. Huge pay rise, yet they are saying not enough, and this will not necessarily stave off future strikes. So what on earth are the Labour Party doing settling at a time of national sort of crisis, financial crisis, Nikki?
Yeah, I mean, this thing about the junior doctors is fascinating. I sort of take the point about renaming them, because actually junior does sort of imply that they are very, you know...
Junior.
And they've often been doing that job for 10 years or more. So that I don't have an issue with. The pay rise issue is more of a problem. If you reach an agreement with a body of workers that still is basically saying, OK, you've given us some terms that we've agreed to, but actually we haven't agreed to them because we're going to carry on striking anyway, you're being held to ransom, aren't you, as a government? And look, I'm the first person to support striking. Not that I ever strike in this industry, because you can't. But I mean, what I mean by that is, like, I support their right to strike. But if they didn't do the deal they wanted or were going to agree to, then why bother at all? Like, that's the bit that I don't understand. I completely understand about NHS, what they perceive to be an NHS underfunding and overworking and lack of safety for them and for patients. Fine, but keep negotiating then.
Yeah, I feel like this is sort of only changed because we've got a Labour government in power, and I feel there's a lot of politicisation. Can't say that word.
Politicisation.
Thank you very much. of the junior doctors in general, and this whole strike. I mean, it just felt like it was never ending under the Tories, and Labour have got in. Of course, they've given them a deal, which is good, but it's going to lead to more. It's going to lead to more. What about actual GPs? What they're going to start? I mean, we heard that there's rumours they're not going to do overtime anymore, and so. It never ends, unfortunately. When you give in to one, then you give in to the rest. And this black hole that has had $9 billion of it contributed by this Labour government, it's only been in power for less than 3 months.
Which the Treasury won't give us any figures on, by the way.
Yes.
Why won't they tell us more details?
Why won't they tell us more? Well,
God.
I think you might find that black hole is contributed by them slightly more than they're letting on, hence why the FT's Freedom of Information request was denied. So I think that this black hole's going to keep on getting bigger, and we're going to have to borrow more money, and the taxpayers going to have to pay more in taxes, aren't they?
Well, as you said, it's going to be radiographers next, and it'll be paramedics, and it'll be every man and his dog. You've opened the floodgates.
Yeah, you certainly have.
Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break, and we've got lots more newspapers to go through in just a moment. Make yourself a cup of tea, and we'll be right back.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sparkling day of sunshine for most of us. It is a bit cool out there, first thing, and it is a bit grey in a few spots, but the mist and the low cloud should tend to clear away. The breeze is picking up a little bit across Kent and along the south coast, and it's not gloriously sunny everywhere. There is quite a bit of thicker cloud across parts of northern Scotland, with even a little bit of rain and drizzle here and there. But for most places, it is a day of September sunshine, and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine by this afternoon. Certainly warmer than last week, 19, 20, getting into the low 20s in a few spots across the southeast and probably parts of the northwest as well, though there will be still quite a bit of thick cloud across the Northern Isles, especially Shetland, well into the evening time. A little bit of drizzly rain here, and quite cloudy at times over the Western Isles, but much of the mainland of Scotland dry, fine and sunny. Same goes for Northern Ireland. Plenty of sunshine here, lasting well into this evening, and much of England and Wales too. As the easterly breeze starts to pick up, we could just start to see a bit more cloud coming into parts of East Anglia and across the southeast in general. That will increase as we go through the night, so turning quite cloudy across these eastern areas. Some mist and fog likely through the night as well, but the thicker cloud and the rain and drizzle should clear away from Shetland, and the vast majority having a dry night. Still quite cool, temperatures well down into single figures, certainly in some rural spots. The nights, though, will get a bit warmer as we go through the rest of this week. So a bit of a grey start, maybe even parts of Wales starting a bit drab tomorrow, but I'm pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will tend to melt away by late morning at the latest, and that will again reveal quite a bit of sunshine tomorrow. Some of these eastern coasts may stay a little misty, more of a breeze across the south tomorrow again, so I was feeling cooler in that breeze, but again in the sunshine, temperatures likely to get into the low 20s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Well, good morning. I'm Johnny Ratner. Problems continue in West Yorkshire to the southwest of Bradford. The Halifax Road at Buttershaw is closed off for investigation work following a serious accident late last night outside the Tesco. On Merseyside, a few miles north of Maghull at Lydiate, the Southport Road remains shut for a police investigation. And in Greater Manchester, the A578, the Wigan Road, has been closed through Lee at the scene of a collision. In Essex, the A12 remains closed southbound from junction 26 down to 25, just off the A120 to the southwest of Colchester, where overnight roadworks have overran, leaving 4 miles of queues on the approach. And London Overground trains are suspended from New Cross Gate to Crystal Palace and West Croydon following a fire alert at Brockley, which means trains can't run between London Bridge and East Croydon. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good luck.
Good morning to you. Keir Starmer stands defiant over taking gifts from Lord Ali.
The Prime Minister has suggested he will continue to take donations from the Labour peer and the prominent party donor.
And after accepting gifts of clothes for himself and his wife, Starmer gave Lord Ali a pass to access Downing Street.
As Starmer shows great interest in Italy's Albania immigration deal, the government announces £75 million in investment for a new border security command.
Elsewhere, disgraced former BBC newsreader Hugh Edwards avoids jail as he's sentenced for accessing indecent images of children.
In a GB News exclusive, Rotherham rape gang survivors demand deportation for their abusers, and our reporter Charlie Peters has the latest.
And we're asking, should the UK introduce more safe and legal asylum routes? It comes as number 10 says they have no plans to do so.
And sport this morning, forget the Emmys. Hollywood was watching Birmingham City beat Wrexham last night, mainly due to their owners, that is. Aston Villa make their Champions League debut tonight in Switzerland as Liverpool play Milan. And a terrifying new world record has been set in Corsica.
It's a little cool out there in places and a bit grey for some, but most will have a sparkling day of September sunshine. And for many, it'll be a similar story tomorrow. Join me later for a full forecast.
It's 7:01. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast. So this story about the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, and the freebies rolls on and on. Some people, not me, some people calling him Sir Keir Sponger. £76,000 worth of gifts and freebies since 2019.
His name does seem to lend itself to these sorts of things. Two-tier Keir, Sir Keir Sponger. Yeah, it's one of those names, isn't it, that seems to be adaptable to that. Let us know your thoughts on this at gbnews.com/your say. This morning, the Prime Minister doubling down and defending his position, saying that he's accepted these gifts from the millionaire Labour donor Lord Ali, but given a pass to access number Downing Street, but no rules were broken.
Yep, everything's fine, Gov. In other news, the Health Secretary has said he's pleased as junior doctors have voted to accept a government pay deal worth a rise of 22.3% on average over 2 years.
And the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has announced investment for a new border security command, paving the way for Labour's take on an immigration crackdown.
Media commentator and former editor of the Sunday Mirror, Paul Connew, joins us now. Good morning, Paul. I understand, we spoke in the last hour, you weren't overly exercised about Labour's or Starmer's gifts row, I guess, but because you refer back to the Tories all the time. But my point to you is that Labour and Sir Keir Starmer, by their own standards, should be setting a better example. You can't just keep pointing back at the Tories all the time.
No, I was pointing out the hypocrisy of the Tories seizing on this one. But, as I said before, I'm a Labour supporter, but I do think this is a bit of an own goal by the Starmers, especially at a time when the economy is in trouble and austerity, by any other name, is actually being introduced. You know, for example, on the fuel allowance for pensioners. It's an odd one, this one, why they've gone down this road. I think a lot of people think, well, the Prime Minister earns, I think, about £170,000 a year. His wife has a senior role in the NHS. I don't know her income, but let's say it's higher than £250,000, almost certainly. So do you need somebody else to supply your wardrobe?
But, I mean, should we not just ban lobbying altogether outright? Why should... I mean, Keir Starmer... Well,
this isn't lobbying.
I mean, what is it then?
They're not the first. I mean, OK, the Sunaks of billionaire couple don't need somebody else.
With respect, you're doing it again. You're saying, yeah, but what about them? Labour and Starmer are meant to be setting new, better standards. They did it with the cronyism row. They've appointed loads of people who are meant to be politically neutral in the civil service, who were former Labour aides, former Labour donors.
But Ben, you're not hearing me. I am not. I have misgivings about this. All I'm saying is it's a bit rich, pun intended, for the Tories to be attacking this and demanding huge investigations. Funny enough, I note the Parliamentary Commissioner says that an investigation isn't needed. So it doesn't seem that there's been a breach of the rules. But my view, though, is breach of the rules or not, I don't think it's a good look in the current climate.
Right, but where do you draw the line?
Supporter.
I mean, I'm just reading inside the papers this morning about sort of discussion and a bit of haggling over who in the government is going to be given access to Dorney Wood, the grace and favour, a beautiful stately home that is rent-free for a senior member of the cabinet. It seems Rachel Reeves is one out on this. It previously would have gone to the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner. There is, of course, Chequers and all of these grace and favour homes. These sorts of people people in government do get freebies. It's part of the job, isn't it? I mean, perhaps maybe people, if the rules have been followed, need to just wise up about what politicians get access to. Or is there a question here about Lord Ali and whether or not he has been given preferential treatment with this access to Downing Street? And many papers reporting this morning that actually he has more influence and more power than many ministers.
Well, Lord Ali is a long-time Labour supporter. All governments take advice from people that they trust. I don't know Lord Ali, but his history is there now, and he, as far as I'm aware, he does not have a pass to number 10 Downing Street anymore. Apparently, he had one because he was giving advice at one stage. Now, taking advice from people that you know, trust, and think can actually give you good advice is hardly new in politics. Just as picking up your point, the Grace and Favour homes have been there for decades. Whether we like it or not, that is part of the, call it perks if you like, or just call it tradition if you like. In fact, you know, but what are you suggesting, that we get rid of Dorney Wood or somewhere, you know, or Chequers? I don't think there's a huge public clamour on that front.
Well, what do you make of the story in the Daily Mail today, headlined "Crass Insensitivity"? Lady Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer's wife, going to London Fashion Week, donning some posh frocks amid the gifts scandal. I mean, is she trolling the public? Is she taking the mickey? What's going on there?
Taking the mickey? Look, it's been declared, you know, do I particularly like it? No. But is this, compared to the other story that's dominating the front pages this morning, Hugh Edwards' sentence and whether he got off too lightly, I think this one, by comparison, is trivial.
Can we talk about the junior doctors? They've settled, accepted the government's deal. It's 22.3% on average over 2 years. But the British Medical Association, the BMA, the union in all of this, say that even after the deal, their pay remains 20.8% down compared to where doctors were in 2008 and warn of more strikes. So here we are with a whopping pay rise for these who want to be now described as resident doctors, and yet all these pensioners wondering whether they're going to be able to eat or heat their homes this winter.
Again, it's a difficult choice, but settling
it's a choice.
It is a choice. Again, it's a balancing act. But if you look at the polls, public support for doctors' pay rises is actually quite high. And we do have we have a crisis in the NHS, partly because of shortage of staff. And you probably wouldn't like to hear this, but part of that problem is because we don't have enough doctors, and we're suffering post-Brexit from probably not enough overseas doctors coming to the UK, and we do need them. OK, so I'm going back to the Tory government, but they boasted about creating more doctors' jobs and then cut back on medical school places. I mean, that didn't actually make any sense.
Paul, what's your thoughts on this Labour government? You know, how many days are we in? 50 or 60? How do you think they're getting on? Because from the outside, it seems like they keep making arguably naive political mistakes. The civil service appointments, the winter fuel allowance, the cronyism rows, now this gift scandal. How do you think they're getting on?
Like any new government, especially at a time when the country is in an economic mess, yes, they're getting a tough time, especially from the right wing press, who are seizing every opportunity. I think they've done pretty well, but if I was, even as a Labour supporter, scoring it out of 10, I'd give them a 7. You know, but I'd like to give them a 10. But you know, but a 7 is about right. They are making
this early on in their tenure. You'd have thought there'd be a bit more of a honeymoon period than a 7.
Honeymoon periods in the current climate, you know, are not going to last very long. Politics at the moment is in a topsy-turvy state. In fact, and let's not forget that, you know, Labour got in. It's a landslide victory, but on one of the lowest percentage vote turnouts. It's it's a difficult one. I think on balance they are doing a pretty good job, but there's going to be tougher decisions to come. Whether they're the right ones or not, time will tell.
Yeah,
Rachel Reeves' budget is going to be a more crucial budget than we've had for some time on October the 30th.
I think you're right there. I think there's not many people looking forward to that. Paul Connew, media commentator, former editor of the Sunday Mirror. Thanks for your thoughts this morning.
Thanks, Paul. OK, the big story, of course, today, unless you've been living under a rock, Hugh Edwards, disgraced BBC newsreader, sentenced yesterday to 6 months prison, suspended for 2 years, which basically means, long story short, if he commits any other crimes in the next 2 years, he'll be going straight into the slammer. Lots of you arguing that should have happened anyway yesterday, regardless. But the judge has said his, quote, long-earned reputation is now in tatters.
Now, the court heard that he paid up to £1,500 to a convicted paedophile who sent him 41 illegal images over WhatsApp between December 2020 and August 2021. We know the youngest child involved in those images was between the ages of 7 and 9.
He's required to sign the Sex Offenders Register for 7 years and pay £3,128 in costs and a victim surcharge as well.
And he's been asked to repay the £200,000 salary he's received since his arrest, which he has so far refused. And he will also keep his £300,000 a year pension.
Oh, that's the one, isn't it? The 300k a year pension. Well, CEO and founder of Freedom from Abuse, Marilyn Hawes, joins us now. Good morning, Marilyn. Your take, please, on Hugh Edwards' sentence, first of all.
What sentence? Sorry, what sentence? I mean, I was listening to a barrister yesterday, for which I absolutely... I mean, I've been doing this for years, as you know, and normally a case like this would go to the Crown Court. So he wasn't a judge, was it? It was a magistrate, so it's not really quite the same thing. I honestly do think it's just outrageous, and I deal a lot with the people who have been abused, and, you know, you look at him there, he arrogantly walks into court. Remorse, he's only remorseful because he's been caught. I mean, I do, you know, over the years I've gone into prisons, I've spoken to child abusers. They are arrogant, they are entitled, they're narcissistic. He's displayed all of that. They have no empathy. Oh, he's very sorry. Well, he would be because he's been caught and he's terrified of going to prison. Oh, and he might be vulnerable in prison. Well, what about the kids that he has been sort of pleasuring himself watching? And I'm not going to describe what those moving images are. I would just say if anybody adult wants to look at the Copine scale and look at category A, you'll see what he was watching. He's a grubby little toad. And these are not. If one more person, I hear one more presenter or reporter say indecent images, I'm going to implode. These are not indecent images. These are real children in real time being brutally abused, some even murdered, and there's men getting off on it. And, you know, sometimes, do you know what? I think the judges should look at this stuff and then they might see, you know, he says he didn't have the memory. I'm sorry, if you'd seen this stuff, as anybody in the police force will tell you has to look at it, you can't forget it. He's a liar. And I mean, also, what don't we know? What don't we know about maybe other things? Exactly. I don't believe that this is just what we see here now. I really feel very strongly about this. I'm sorry. His barrister did a good job for him, didn't he?
I heard Harry Coles, who's the political editor at The Sun, talking about this. Of course, The Sun did the big scoop that kind of unveiled it all right at the beginning. He was saying last night that they were sitting on allegations relating to Hugh Edwards since 2008. Now, he was only in court facing crimes, you know, charges, allegations for one period between 2020 and I think 2021, but it certainly seems as though there's been lots of other rumours and allegations doing the rounds. Given that, obviously, you can only be tried for what appears before court, but it feels as though there's possibly more to this story, and of course there would be, surely. I mean, this doesn't just happen temporarily for a small period of time. What about the children in all of this? Because I know that you work a lot with victims of abuse. You know, for me, it's the 7-year-old. 2 of the images were of children as young as 7 out of the 41 indecent images that he was viewing. Are any attempts ever made to try and track down these children, to try and rehabilitate them? Because all this talk of rehabilitating him, what about the kids?
Well, it's very difficult to track them because what happens is these go down in the dark web and those poor kids, their images are out there forever. And I must say, you said it, indecent images, they're not. They're not indecent images. These are real children. The trouble is, it's out there on the World Wide Web, and it's circling around for plenty of other people like Hugh Edwards to buy them at a great cost. I mean, if you can get a fresh bit of video, the offenders call that fresh meat down on the dark web. I've met enough of these people in prison. Yeah, if he went to prison, he would be very vulnerable, because one thing prisoners don't like is nonces. And they give them a bad time, and sorry, rightly so. I mean, his barrister has done a good job for him, that's all I can say. I mean, why does he need to worry? I mean, £300,000 pension, £200,000 that he's not going to give back. I mean, if you had any remorse, if you had any sense of conscience, he surely would give back some of that money that he earned, the £200,000. I think he's a nasty piece of work. These people, he would have been doing this for a long time, and what didn't happen, here we go again, the BBC not shining in glory. You know, and they said only yesterday or the day before, I quote, we will be, this is Tim Davie and Samir Shah, the new chair, we will be looking at lessons from this period. Oh, good Lord, spare me. They learnt nothing from Rolf Harris and Savile. They've just launched another child abuser in plain sight, haven't they? Why are people paying their licence? I'm not going to. It's outrageous.
Yeah, OK. Marilyn, in the mitigation, Hugh Edwards' defence lawyer said that because of the fact he went to Cardiff and didn't get into Oxford University, he felt inferior at the BBC to his colleagues. He talked about how his father was abusive as a child. I mean, this is all rubbish, isn't it? Plenty of people feel inferior or lack confidence or have abusive childhoods. They don't go on to become paedophiles.
Now, now you've uncovered it, you see. There's your deep dive. I am a passionate supporter of proper parenting in the early years. Now, he had an abusive father. Now, only 1 in 8 people that had abuse as a child will go on and be like him, right? So that is a myth that people turn out to be the same. But said that he has that very thing about his father being abusive causes adverse childhood experiences. Those adverse childhood experiences in the first 3 years of a child's life create awful damage to the brain. The cortisol through the trauma breaks the neural pathways and distorts the landscape of the brain. Now, I bet when he was at school, if someone did a deep dive on his schooling, I bet he was either very aggressive or very regressed and a people pleaser. The behaviours at that time would not have been understood. And he should have, and I'm saying this to anybody now, in early years, working in nurseries, children that are extreme, outside the normal expectation, then get those children looked at and get a deep dive done on them, and don't keep writing it off as ADHD. He would have done this, and there'd been distortions in his behaviour for years, and that's what should have happened, a deeper dive. And of course, the trouble is, there will be BBC colleagues. I mean, a so-called whistleblowing policy, I bet that wasn't robust. I bet there are people there terrified of their own jobs who were touched by him, adults, not just kids, young men, you know, they're terrified of coming forward. And I mean, as for the BBC saying about lessons and reflecting, well, they never reflected in the past. And they're joined to the government here, aren't they? I mean, I am outraged I'm outraged by this magistrate that did what that person did. I mean, they should sit down and watch these awful things. It's just debased. It's vile.
It's depraved, 100%. Marilyn, can I ask you this? Because somebody's tweeted me asking me this question, so I pass it on to you, and I don't know whether you agree or not. The question is, chemical castration. Why don't we do it for people who've committed paedophilia?
No, it doesn't work. I know the police are trying it, but I get a lot of information from ATSA, which is in America. That's the Association of Treatment of Sex Abusers. We have one over here called NOTA, which is a national organisation of treatment from abusers. What you can't do, guaranteed, is turn off the brain. The fantasy sits in the brain. When you are chemically castrated, it means your bits don't work, right? But I have seen over the years when people are being chemically castrated, so few people, so many of them are have become, no one's born this way, but have become, by the landscape of the brain changing, wired in this way. I mean, he could have, if he had felt so remorse, he could have gone and got help. There's an organisation called Stop It Now. They could have helped him, but they don't want to change until they get caught.
Yeah.
But that damage in the early years, that's the castration. The trouble is, they will use objects, and the abuse gets worse. They will use bottles. They will use all sorts of objects. They've got fingers.
Okay.
They've got digits.
Yeah.
All right, Marilyn.
You know, that's the trouble. It doesn't work.
OK, Marilyn Hawes, CEO and founder of Freedom from Abuse, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for your time.
It really does. When I hear about this kind of stuff, it feels like somebody's grabbing a slice of my soul and just tearing it apart. I just feel so sorry for these kids.
Well, children need protection, don't they? And it's just any crime that involves kids is the worst of them all. And the fall from grace for Hugh Edwards, somebody I looked up to as well, worked with him at the BBC, admired him, and as the judge said yesterday, his reputation is in tatters.
Yeah, it's an understatement.
Understatement indeed. Right, well, let's cheer ourselves up because the weather is looking good. The sun is out. Alex Deakin has your forecast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sparkling day of sunshine for most of us. It is a bit cool out there, first thing, and it is a bit grey in a few spots, but the mist and the low cloud should tend to clear away. The breeze is picking up a little bit across Kent and along the south coast, and it's not gloriously sunny everywhere. There is quite a bit of thicker cloud across parts of northern Scotland, with even a little bit of rain and drizzle here and there. But for most places, it is a day of September sunshine, and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine by this afternoon. Certainly warmer than last week, 19, 20, getting into the low 20s in a few spots across the southeast and probably parts of the northwest as well, though there will be still quite a bit of thick cloud across the Northern Isles, especially Shetland, well into the evening time. A little bit of drizzly rain here, and quite cloudy at times over the Western Isles, but much of the mainland of Scotland dry, fine and sunny. Same goes for Northern Ireland. Plenty of sunshine here, lasting well into this evening, and much of England and Wales too. As the easterly breeze starts to pick up, we could just start to see a bit more cloud coming into parts of East Anglia and across the southeast in general. That will increase as we go through the night, so turning quite cloudy across these eastern areas. Some mist and fog likely through the night as well, but the thicker cloud and the rain and drizzle should clear away from Shetland, and the vast majority having a dry night. Still quite cool, temperatures well down into single figures, certainly in some rural spots. The nights, though, will get a bit warmer as we go through the rest of this week. So a bit of a grey start, maybe even parts of Wales starting a bit drab tomorrow, but I'm pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will tend to melt away by late morning at the latest, and that will again reveal quite a bit of sunshine tomorrow. Some of these eastern coasts may stay a little misty, more of a breeze across the south tomorrow again, so perhaps feeling cooler in that breeze, but again in the sunshine, temperatures likely to get into the low 20s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Nice bit of sunshine, that's what we need. Indian summer, and
it was gorgeous yesterday,
yeah.
And the most incredible sky in the evening. Did you see a sunset?
Yeah, I got the train up. I was trying to film the sunset from the window of the train, but trees kept getting in the way. But it was really nice.
I was trying to take a picture from my bedroom window as well, because it's just pink sky at night. Oh, it was stunning. Hopefully, more of the same this week. But anyway, it's time now for our Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win the equivalent of £3,000 a month in your bank account for a whole year.
Yep, it's a whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to make it yours.
This is your...
Good luck. Still to come, should we introduce safe and legal routes to the UK for those seeking asylum? We'll be debating that after this very quick break.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
Hello, welcome back. Downing Street has said there are no plans to introduce further safe and legal routes for asylum seekers coming to the UK.
Well, this comes after a Number 10 spokesperson said we already have a number of safe and legal routes, and the priority is making sure we have a fit and functioning asylum system.
But with the Home Office revealing on Saturday that mega figure, 801 illegal migrants crossing the English Channel, a record number since Labour came into power, in fact. Should we introduce safe and legal routes to the UK for those seeking asylum?
Well, to debate this morning, we're joined by the director of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr Krish Kandaya, and content lead at Migration Central, Charlie Downs. Good morning to you both. Thanks very much indeed for your time. Dr Kandaya, if we could start with you, put your case to us, because there will be people watching and listening this morning going, for goodness sake, these people who are crossing the English Channel are already in a safe country. We have no duty to provide asylum to everybody that is in a country of crisis. Otherwise, we would frankly be overwhelmed.
Well, we don't need to provide safety to everybody that's seeking asylum, but we can provide safety to some. I use my family as an example. We are a fostering family. We have a lovely family, 6 children. But if social services would need us to take another one, our hearts are set to say, yes, we can take more. But we can't take 1,000 children. That would be inappropriate. So we have what I would describe as compassion and control. And I think we can have the same. We can have strong borders. We can go after the criminal gangs. But I think it is appropriate for us to offer sanctuary to some people that need it. Normally, it will be people who have a family connection here. The safe and legal routes will help to stop the boats crossing the channel, where we're seeing too many people die. For example, in Ukraine, nobody got on a small boat to come to the UK. They were able to apply for a visa in their country, escape the war, get on a plane and arrive safely in the United Kingdom. We manage as a country to be incredibly generous. 200,000 Ukrainians have found sanctuary here. I think we should be able to offer that to a limited number of people from other countries who have a valid reason for being here with us.
OK, Charlie, what's your response to that?
I'd say if times were better, I would completely agree. But I don't think the UK is currently in a position to be spending more money on what ultimately amounts to an additional scheme on top of the essential services that the government offers. The UK government spends billions.
Oh, we've just lost your sound there.
Oh.
There you go. You're back.
You're back. I think it's something
Yeah,
they said.
all good.
Repeat that sentence.
That's all right.
Sorry, Charlie, we just lost you there. The UK government, you were saying.
The UK government spends, billions of pounds every year, about a budget of about £4 billion on its asylum system. And if times were better, if the economy was doing better, if people, ordinary people were doing better, then I would be saying that perhaps we should be thinking about opening up more safe and legal routes, because any sensible and self-respecting first world country does feel a certain sense of duty to help those less fortunate than ourselves. But the fact of the matter is the UK is not in a position to do that right now. We are in a very bad place economically, socially, culturally, politically. And I don't think we can really offer the kind of, I don't think we're a safe country. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. I don't think we're a safe country for refugees to be settled in, because we can't even protect our own children from being stabbed by criminals who shouldn't be here in the first place.
Are you saying then that the Ukrainians that Dr. Krish Kandaya was just talking about, the 200,000 of whom came and sought refuge here legally, shouldn't have come because we don't have room and it's not a safe country? I mean, it doesn't add up, does it?
Ultimately, yes, that is what I'm saying, because as nice as it is, the thought of being able to help those less fortunate is very nice, and it's very noble.
People opened up
and
their
I
own
applaud it.
homes. People found space within their own homes to house Ukrainians, many of whom are still living with them. People found space within, so it's not for you necessarily to judge that, is it? I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Krish Kandaya? And if I can expand that question a little bit, why is it that we had room to legally accept people from Ukraine, but, for example, we saw that among those who drowned at the weekend trying to cross the Channel were people coming from Afghanistan, where we know the Taliban are brutally imposing draconian, horrendous laws there, not least on women. Why is it OK for Ukraine and not Afghans? Is this actually about the colour of their skin?
I think that's a very valid question, Isabel, and it has something to do with the UK's strategic interests, apparently, because I've asked the Home Office and other government officials about this. I've got friends who would like to get friends and family out of Sudan, where there's a genocide going on. I think, to answer Charlie's question as well, that the Homes for Ukraine scheme was incredibly cheap. The reason that our asylum system costs so much is because we've been putting people into hotels. Hotels are not good for anybody, not for our government treasury, but also not good for the mental health of people who would like to have a front door of their own, to be able to work and pay their own way and not feel kind of ghettoized in a hotel. So the Homes for Ukraine scheme allowed members of the public to host people in their homes, which is a massive saving. So I think we can get rid of that huge immigration and asylum bill by thinking more creatively about accommodation and allowing asylum seekers and refugees to work.
Charlie, on the Ukraine topic, there are some people who argue that we shouldn't have even been taking refugees from there either. The population of the UK is 70 million. We're a tiny island. When you compare it to the likes of, say, Australia, a population of 26 million, and it's about, how big is it compared to the UK? About 32 times bigger. There just isn't simply the space. Why is it the UK who needs to act as the final destination for the world's needy when we've got so many of our own problems?
I would ask the very same question to those people who are advocating that we open up more safe and legal routes to asylum. Why should it be us, this tiny island, that takes these people when we're already so economically struggling? Something else I would add is the Afghan resettlement scheme cost the taxpayer £500 million. This is not just pennies, this is significant money. So how much more would have needed to have been spent for that to be successful, for Afghans not to cross the Channel in small boats? Why was that not good enough?
Dr. Krish Kandaya, do you want to pick up on that? I mean, we have the 6th largest economy in the world, and Charlie says we're not wealthy enough to support these countries and these people.
Well, I think Charlie said it earlier. We are a first world economy. We can play our part. If you think about the Ukraine crisis, we took 200,000, which was incredibly generous. but nowhere near what Romania and Poland and even Moldova have done. So often refugees will want to stay relatively close to the country they've left. Often that's about family connections and language. We are not taking the bulk of the refugees. That was true also in Sudan. We've taken none, but Egypt has taken a huge number of refugees from Sudan because people like to stay local. So again, it's about playing our part and not thinking of ourselves as Little Britain, but Great Britain. We have a great tradition of hospitality and kindness, one of the best moments in our history. In fact, they build bronze statues to celebrate it, was the Kindertransport, where we received 10,000 Jewish children fleeing from the Nazis. We need to play our part as a global nation and not just retreat into an island mentality.
Yeah, well, indeed. We have a great history. We are very generous, as you've said, but we still get called racists and bigots for raising minute concerns about illegal migration. So it seems we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But thank you both for joining us this morning. Dr. Krish Kandaya, OBE, Director of Sanctuary Foundation.
I think one of the big advantages, if there were more legal or any safe and legal routes opened up, would be that there wouldn't be this conflation between these people who are here basically queue jumping to get into the country and getting sort of access to all of our benefits and everything else ahead of British citizens, with those people who are actually fleeing things like the Taliban, and actually it would enable us to have a proper conversation about it, because absolutely nobody should be able to queue jump. I think everybody can agree on those people who are fit, young and healthy and coming from safe countries. There's no room.
Yeah, you get legal migrants here, for example, the Poles who have been here for a while, families of Polish people who raise similar concerns about illegal migration because, as you said, they say, well, hang on a minute, I've worked hard to come here legally, I've done all the paperwork, I've done things by the book, and yet we have... Yeah, so...
Let us know your thoughts this morning. It's a good and interesting debate to have. gbnews.com/your say.
Coming up, there is life outside the Premier League because the Championship
the Championship
and League, well, it's a great league. Paul Coit is here with all the latest sports news. This is GB News Breakfast with Ben and Isabel. Back in a tick.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Johnny Ratner. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, the inside lane remains closed eastbound at junction 25, the Brighouse exit, after overnight roadworks overran and a lorry's broken down on the opposite side of the carriageway, causing queues as traffic squeezes past the scene. On Merseyside, north of Maghull, the Southport Road at Lydiate shut for a police investigation. In Greater Manchester, the A578 at Lee has been shut along the Wigan Road following a collision, and the A12 in Essex is closed southbound by the Marks Tay turn off southwest of Colchester after overnight roadworks overran, causing queues of about 4 miles on the approach. South London Croxted Road at Dulwich shut for emergency water main repairs, and London Overground trains have been suspended from New Cross Gate to Crystal Palace and West Croydon following a fire alert at Brockley, which also means trains are suspended in London Bridge and East Croydon. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Right, it is time to get all the sports news with Paul Coit. What have you got for us
Never
today?
usually lead with League One, which is unfair because I often get a lot of people say, well, what about the Championship? What about the lower leagues? But then again, when Hollywood is involved, you can't not mention it. Because we've got Ryan Reynolds, who with Rob McElhenney, who own Wrexham, and then we've got Birmingham City, Tom Brady, the NFL superstar, who is part owner. There's Tom Brady there on the left with young David Beckham there on the right-hand side. Everybody was out there at St Andrews. The score was Birmingham City 3, Wrexham 1. Rob McElhenney there on the right, and there he is with Tom Brady. So the whole of America is like showing interest in League One, which is probably the first time that's ever happened. But both of them high-flying. I mean, Birmingham have had all sorts of troubles. Wrexham, of course, they're looking for their third promotion now, and Birmingham, and who knows how far this is going to go.
The Americans probably think it's the top tier, don't they? They probably see League One and think, oh,
they probably watch
some of that.
What's going on? They don't really care, or they're looking for the Hollywood faces. It's just like when Isabel watches football. It's
Exactly. I'm just like the Yanks with football. No idea.
So anyway, Wrexham, they'd won 4 out of 5, but it's the first one that they'd lost, and the Blues are unbeaten now. So 9 they've played and unbeaten in 9, and things are turning around for them, which is good because they're another one of these great clubs, great heritage clubs who have just hit the skids and hasn't been good for them, so maybe things are turning around for Birmingham City. So what about Champions League tonight? Talking Birmingham and the Midlands, Aston Villa are away to Young Boys of Bern. Do you know...
Young Boys?
Young Boys of Bern.
What's the name of their stadium?
It's the Dorf Stadium. I'd love to be able to tell you. I'd love to. This is something you just have to Google and then you can try and...
I don't understand why we can't. It is the name of a stadium.
It is the name of a stadium, but
I'm not saying do it.
Remember, last time we spoke about the Champions League, I was just about to go in and someone had shouted in my ear, you don't mention the name of that stadium. So I was listen, I can't mention the...
So if you're keen to find out, not from us, just Google the name of the Young Boys football team stadium and have a giggle to yourself.
Yeah, there you go. And by the way, the Young Boys were originally called the Old Boys.
Were they?
Back in the 1800s. So now they're called the Young Boys.
Come on, old boy.
Yeah, so there we are. So Aston Villa are away to them. Playing on the plastic pitch, by the way. Plastic pitch, which a lot of people have argued about because it shouldn't really be allowed in the Champions League.
No, they're prone to causing injuries, plastic pitches.
It's in Switzerland, so obviously the weather's bad. That's the reason they have the plastic pitch. Unai Emery spoke about the plastic pitch. Let's hear what Unai Emery has to say about it.
We decided to come here, to train here, because we want to know and to adapt for the synthetic pitch. But we are ready, and we are not going to use as an excuse, because I think we can play like we are with our personality in synthetic pitch.
Is it just me, or am I getting only every third word there?
Yeah. Well, you got plastic pitch. You got that.
I got distracted by all the bright lights and signs behind him.
Wow, what was all that behind him there? You lost him when it got to plastic pitch.
Yeah.
I think the first plastic pitch that we saw was Queen's Park Rangers. This is back in the late 70s. But in those days, you'd throw the ball and it would bounce about 4 times higher than it would actually normally do. But anyway, these days, I mean, the technology's so good, it shouldn't mean that much.
Yeah, I don't like astroturfed gardens either. I think it defeats the whole...
They're not good for the bees.
No, it defeats the whole point of having a garden. Like,
and it looks
natural.
It's like a carpet. There's one round the corner from out. Like, what is...
Low maintenance, I guess, I get that, but...
No mow.
Are you like me, though, Ben? Do you enjoy mowing the lawn? I love a mow of the lawn.
I don't really have time.
I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh, you're so funny. Do you put a little podcast on whilst you're doing it?
No, silent. Well, because I've got
silence.
Well, I've got Dudley the dog just woofing at me all the way in front of me. Yeah. But I do enjoy mowing the lawn. But anyway, maybe I should become a groundsman.
OK.
Other Champions League game, Liverpool away at AC Milan. Arne Slot, it's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Arne.
Happy birthday.
So he's 46 today. So the Champions League is back. There's also League Cup as well we can talk about a bit later, and also deep-sea diving, which I want to tell you about.
Oh, my goodness. There was an incredible Netflix documentary on that, which
Did you
I
watch
highly
it?
recommend. The first 10 minutes is probably one of the scariest things I've ever watched.
Yeah, it's called The Deepest Breath.
Yeah.
Is that free diving?
Yeah.
Free diving.
First 10 minutes of that, terrifying.
They set a new world record at the weekend.
Wow.
And I just think, why?
Have we got some clips of that later?
We do.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
What a
And in
good
fact,
tease.
I will be holding my breath for over 10 minutes to see if I can attempt a new world record.
OK, Paul. Good luck to all the English teams
Lucky I'm
tonight.
only on for 2.5, though, eh?
All right, we've got to go to the break. After that, we'll be discussing the Prime Minister's donor gifting controversy as we go through the papers with Nikki Hodgson and Alex Armstrong.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
With record temperatures expected this week, how do zoos keep their cooler creatures cold? Well, at Yorkshire Wildlife Park, the polar bears are enjoying a vegetable ice block.
Polar bears, they do have quite a variety of different temperatures that they naturally do find. Once they're moving off these polar ice caps, they are in the likes of down in the areas of Canada, Hudson Bay. Naturally, they were finding polar bears in 35-degree temperatures year upon year. So they are very much used to warm temperatures and heat waves as such. What you'll tend to find is they'll go for a good swim and then go for a snooze in the shade thereafter.
Not wanting to miss out, the sea lions are treated to a huge fish lolly.
In the hot weather, it's really important to give them ice because these guys, they don't drink salt water. These pools are actually saltwater pools. They actually drink fresh water. They've got 2 freshwater pools in their house, but again, being able to provide that in their outside enclosure is also really important. So offering them ice with their fish is not only enriching, but it's actually beneficial to their welfare as well.
Other animals like the lemurs will be basking in the sun, but also cooling down with frozen sweet potato.
So we've got 3 different species of lemur here. They come in all different shapes, colours, sizes, but they are native to Madagascar. Madagascar can get quite hot, understandably, so throughout the cold months here in Yorkshire, we do give them a nice heated house all year round, but especially making sure it's nice and warm in the winter for them. And it does mean that in the hot spells as well that we're able to keep our eyes on them and try and give them things that make them a bit more comfortable with that incoming hot weather as well.
The frozen food on offer here certainly has the seal of approval on what could be the hottest day of the year.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Joining us now to go through all the newspapers is Nikki Hodgson and Alex Armstrong. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
We were just talking about Sir Keir Starmer and his wife's penchant, I'll use that word again, for high-end clothing, courtesy of the taxpayer.
That's right.
I was saying Liz Truss infamously said that when she was in her brief period at Downing Street, she complained she didn't have hair and makeup on tap. She had to run out during the night trying to source a makeup artist for a big speech the next day. So should our leaders be given, hair and makeup and clothes? They need to look the part, don't they?
Absolutely not. Absolutely, this is ridiculous. Look, we're living in a cost-of-living crisis. The public is suffering. They've been made to suffer by this government, particularly. You can't be having a message message saying that pensioners are going to freeze this winter and we're OK with it, and then go and get luxury clothing just for your Lord donor, your multi-millionaire donor, who's giving it, was it 20 grand to dress the Starmers, then keep it off the books. Oh, we made a mistake. Oh, we didn't know we had to declare it. Rubbish. The guy's been an MP for God knows how long. He doesn't know the parliamentary rules. I mean, don't tell me they didn't know they had to declare his wife's donation.
No, no, Alex, you've got this completely wrong. First of all, what is wrong with a millionaire, billionaire donor donating something to a party?
No, there is nothing wrong with that.
The taxpayer have got nothing to do with the story. That's important to clarify.
Let's get that right. You're absolutely. There's nothing wrong with donors doing that. Now, what's different is when you're running a government of austerity, right? And you're plastering on the front pages your lord, who has been given access to Downing Street. That was part of the deal, obviously. I want my free pass to Downing Street so I can come in and drop in whenever I feel like it, and then be dressed in luxury clothing.
What do you want
I don't mind if he goes
and his wife to wear.
Go to Charles Truett,
Bin
right?
bags.
Get yourself a nice suit for 120 quid, like the rest of us have to do. He doesn't need to be dressed in Chanel.
This is a load of rubbish.
No,
look,
come on, Nikki.
No,
come on.
no, I'm sorry. Look, if I was in her position, I would want to look semi-decent because everybody's eyes are on you every day. She has a picture taken every time she leaves the house. She's an asset. She
Kate Middleton. No, Nikki.
No, Kate Middleton wears high-end fashion repeatedly.
Sometimes she doesn't wear high-end fashion. Sometimes she looks beautiful in a 45 quid dress.
They throw the odd piece in once a year, and then she wears designer clothes worth thousands of pounds all the rest
Nikki,
of the time.
can I ask you, though, that at the time when pensioners are being stripped of their fuel allowances, look at this front page on the Telegraph. Lady Starmer yesterday going down to London Fashion Week in the public eye. Paps are there, photographers are there, flashing some very posh garms indeed. I don't know how much that's worth.
She was lent that by the woman whose fashion show she was going to see. But look, can I just put some other side into this, as is my role? Margaret Thatcher had 118 appointments in just 12 months on her, what was called the Iron Barnet, as in her hair. Yeah. She was the one who actually recognised the importance of her image. The Queen and her had quite similar looks.
You know what?
We have no objection.
Right, OK, hang on.
The point about the matter is that dress was loaned to her, which is also good for the planet. That's a Labour thing to do, obviously.
Oh, come off
No, but listen, look, our fashion industry is actually one of our kind of assets as a nation.
Fine,
so,
but the Starmers their combined salary is 200 grand a year, right? By most people's standards, that is a very good salary combined household income.
So you're not
They don't need that. Well, absolutely. Why should they?
Doesn't need checkers.
OK, look, let's remember when the Tories were in office last and there was that wallpaper, the so-called wallpaper scandal where a donor had paid to refurbish Downing Street, which I think was a perfectly acceptable thing to do.
Gold wallpaper's OK, but a nice dress
Well, no, because that's not... Everyone can use that building. The next person can move in and use that building. I mean, the next Prime Minister could use that wallpaper. It was an investment into the building. This is an investment into his personal wardrobe. At a time of austerity, they are millionaires. Hang on, the Starmers are millionaires. Let's be clear about that. They do not need... They should not be flaunting around in Chanel and expensive luxury clothes while they're making pensioners freeze to death in the winter.
Nikki, the optics of this, of Lady Starmer going to London Fashion Week yesterday at a time when all this controversy is swirling around them, is absolutely tone deaf.
It's cronyism.
It's argued...
So much for cleaning up politics and having a government of service. The only people this government is serving are the Starmers.
I would argue, Nikki, I would argue she's deliberately trolling the public by going down to...
Ben, it's her job to appear at events that are to do with promoting the greatness of Britain round the world. London Fashion Week is one of them.
If this was Carrie Johnson, the press would be having a field day with her. Of course they did. Of course they did. Yeah, well, of course they did.
She's got to look decent.
Yeah, well, you've got people like David Lammy and Angela Rayner who put tweets out criticising Boris Johnson not that long ago, saying, who does he think he is with spending all this money accepting from donors? Now they're out defending Keir Starmer's donations today. It's cronyism.
But do you think that they shouldn't be allowed any freebies? Because it seems to be accepted for generations that they're entitled to stay rent-free in these grace and favour homes, these stately homes. Why? Why do they need that? As you point out repeatedly, they're millionaires. Surely we could be housing British people in Chequers. For goodness sake, if you want to go... It sounds like a communist country, but that's what you're... It sounds to me almost what you're advocating.
It's state property. There's a line. There's a line, right? The line is very clear to most British people. The public will I'm sure, will be really astounded by what's going on at the moment. But accepting luxury clothing, accepting luxury accommodation is not something that the British people will think is acceptable.
We didn't get to go through any other stories.
No, sorry. We'll be back.
It's a great debate. Let us know at home what you think.
Your weather now with Alex Deakin.
Hot and spicy.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sparkling day of sunshine for most of us. It is a bit cool out there, first thing, and it is a bit grey in a few spots, but the mist and the low cloud should tend to clear away. The breeze is picking up a little bit across Kent and along the south coast, and it's not gloriously sunny everywhere. There is quite a bit of thicker cloud across parts of northern Scotland, with even a little bit of rain and drizzle here and there. But for most places, it is a day of September sunshine, and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine by this afternoon. Certainly warmer than last week, 19, 20, getting into the low 20s in a few spots across the southeast and probably parts of the northwest as well, though there will be still quite a bit of thick cloud across the Northern Isles, especially Shetland, well into the evening time. A little bit of drizzly rain here, and quite cloudy at times over the Western Isles, but much of the mainland of Scotland dry, fine and sunny. Same goes for Northern Ireland. Plenty of sunshine here, lasting well into this evening, and much of England and Wales too. As the easterly breeze starts to pick up, we could just start to see a bit more cloud coming into parts of East Anglia and across the southeast in general. That will increase as we go through the night, so turning quite cloudy across these eastern areas. Some mist and fog likely through the night as well, but the thicker cloud and the rain and drizzle should clear away from Shetland, and the vast majority having a dry night. Still quite cool, temperatures well down into single figures, certainly in some rural spots. The nights, though, will get a bit warmer as we go through the rest of this week. So a bit of a grey start, maybe even parts of Wales starting a bit drab tomorrow, but I'm pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will tend to melt away by late morning at the latest, and that will again reveal quite a bit of sunshine tomorrow. Some of these eastern coasts may stay a little misty, more of a breeze across the south tomorrow again, so perhaps feeling cooler in that breeze, but again in the sunshine, temperatures likely to get into the low 20s.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Johnny Ratner. In West Yorkshire, to the southwest of Bradford, the Halifax Road remains closed as you head through Buttershaw at the scene of a collision that took place yesterday evening. Those investigation works are still taking place. Into Greater Manchester on the A578, the Wigan Road remains cordoned off through Lee following an accident around 6 o'clock this morning. And the A12 in Essex remains shut southbound at the Marks Tay A120 exit to the southwest of Colchester after overnight roadworks overrun, leaving queues of about 4 miles on the approach. South London at Croxted Road remains shut between Dulwich and Herne Hill, just south of Brockwell Park for emergency water main repairs, and London Overground trains remain suspended out of New Cross Gate to both Crystal Palace and West Croydon following a fire alert at Brockley. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is your chance.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good morning. Starmer is standing defiant over taking gifts from Lord Ali.
The Prime Minister has suggested he'll continue to take donations from the Labour peer and prominent party donor.
After accepting gifts of clothes for himself and his wife, Starmer gave Lord Ali a pass to access Downing Street.
And as the Prime Minister shows great interest in Italy's Albania immigration deal, the government has announced £75 million worth of investments for a new border security command.
The disgraced former BBC newsreader Hugh Edwards has avoided jail as he's sentenced for accessing indecent images of children.
In a GB News exclusive, Rotherham rape gang survivors demand deportation for their abusers. Our reporter Charlie Peters will have the latest shortly.
And we're asking, should the UK introduce more safe and legal asylum routes? This is as Number 10 says they have no plans to do so.
And sport this morning, forget the Emmys. Hollywood was watching Birmingham City beat Wrexham last night, mainly due to their owners. Aston Villa make their Champions League debut tonight in Switzerland as Liverpool play Milan, and a terrifying new world record's been set in Corsica.
It's a little cool out there in places and a bit grey for some, but most will have a sparkling day of September sunshine. And for many, it'll be a similar story tomorrow. Join me later for a full forecast.
It's 8:01. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, it's quite a mugshot on the front of most of the papers, or at least most of the tabloids this morning. Hugh Edwards looking a bit different from that face that we got used to staring out at us from the BBC 10 o'clock news for many years. The disgraced newsreader was spared jail yesterday after admitting to accessing indecent images of children, but the judge said that his long-earned reputation is in tatters. Understatement, I think.
Yeah, I think that also happened a while ago. The court heard how he paid up to £1,500 to a paedophile who sent him 41 illegal images over WhatsApp between December 2020 and August 2021.
Yeah, 2 of those images were of children as young as 7. Well, he is now required to sign the sex offenders register for 7 years and pay £3,128 in costs, plus a victim surcharge.
And he's also been asked to repay the £200,000 salary he's received since his arrest, which he has so far refused to do. And, by the way, he'll also keep his £300k a year pension because there isn't a morality clause, as far as Tim Davie has suggested from the BBC. There wasn't a morality clause in his contract. So, typically, when you get big TV stars, they would have a morality clause which says if you get up to impropriety or any crimes...
into disrepute.
Yeah, you lose the lot. But Hugh Edwards had nothing like that, which means, regardless of his behaviour, he'll keep his £300k a year pension, paid for, of course, by the TV licence fee.
Well, earlier we spoke to the CEO of Freedom from Abuse, Marilyn Hawes.
Normally a case like this would go to the Crown Court. So he wasn't a judge, was it? It was a magistrate, so it's not really quite the same thing. I honestly do think it's just outrageous. And I deal a lot with the people who have been abused. And, you know, you look at him there, he arrogantly walks into court. Remorse, he's only remorseful because he's been caught. I mean, I do, you know, over the years I've gone into prisons, I've spoken to child abusers. They are arrogant, they are entitled, they're narcissistic. He's displayed all of that. They have no empathy. Oh, he's very sorry. Well, he would be because he's been caught and he's terrified of going to prison. Oh, and he might be vulnerable in prison. Well, what about the kids that he has been sort of pleasuring himself watching? And I'm not going to describe what those moving images are. I would just say if anybody adult wants to look at the Copine scale and look at category A, you'll see what he was watching. He's a grubby little toad. And these are not... If one more person, I hear one more presenter or reporter say indecent images, I'm going to implode. These are not indecent images. These are real children in real time being brutally abused, some even murdered, and there's men getting off on it. And, you know, sometimes, do you know what? I think the judges should look at this stuff and then they might see, you know, he says, he didn't have the memory. I'm sorry, if you'd seen this stuff, as anybody in the police force will tell you has to look at it, you can't forget it. He's a liar. And I mean, also, what don't we know? What don't we know about maybe other things? Exactly. I don't believe that this is just what we see here now. I really feel very strongly about this. I'm sorry. His barrister did a good job for him, didn't he? And those poor kids, their images are out there forever. And I must say, you said it, indecent images, they're not. They're not indecent images. These are real children. The trouble is, it's out there on the World Wide Web, and it's circling around for plenty of other people like Hugh Edwards to buy them at a great cost. I mean, if you can get a fresh bit of video, the offenders call that fresh meat.
Was Marilyn Hawes, the CEO and founder of Freedom from Abuse. We spoke to her a bit earlier this morning.
Yeah, lots of people liking what she had to say on Your Say this morning, and Valerie also sent this in. I'm totally disgusted that Hugh Edwards has as good as been let off for subscribing to the disgusting child sexploitation industry. He should have been sent down like Rolf Harris was. We appear to be regressing as a society, and as long as sick individuals like Edwards pay for these sickening images of children being exploited and as good as get away with it, we will keep regressing.
Yeah, I know he was sentenced according to the guidelines, but the controversy is that the guidelines are rotten. Edwards replied to some of the pictures he received saying they were amazing. His mitigation in defence was that because he went to Cardiff University and didn't get into Oxford, he felt inferior at the BBC to his colleagues, and that's why, you know, it contributed towards his mental health. He also said he had a bad childhood. His dad was a bit of a monster. Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody has a bit of a rough childhood now and then, or bad experiences, but don't go on to become paedophiles.
Right, we're going to speak now to Daisy Cooper. She's the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats. It is, of course, the final day of the Liberal Democrat conference taking place in Brighton, and we will be hearing that keynote speech from Sir Ed Davey a little bit later on. Daisy, you've already done yours. That weight has been lifted off your shoulders, and it was a very emotive, powerful speech talking about your own personal battle with Crohn's disease and your experience of the NHS. What motivated you to reveal at one point you only had 4 days left to live and had to have major surgery?
Well, this happened to me 12 years ago, and quite frankly, it was a personal decision that basically it feels like the right time for me to share it. And I think that part of the reason for that is that we talk about our health and care services, we talk about how the NHS and our care services are broken, but I think it's really important that we give people hope and optimism that we can fix them. And fundamentally, I also want people to know that there are politicians like me who are fighting from personal experience, because I know that when we talk about the NHS and care, it's not just the systems that we're talking about, and it's not even just the amazing staff we're talking about. It's people's lives, and it's giving people the ability to live their lives to the full.
Excuse me. Yeah, Daisy, it was a very heartwarming speech for you to reveal those details. And of course, everybody wants the NHS to succeed. It has more money than ever before. What's the Lib Dems' stance on migration's impact on the NHS? Because not only do we have a problem with illegal migration and the small boats, it's argued we have far too many legal migrants in the country, putting pressure on all sorts of services, not least the NHS. So how would the Lib Dems tackle that?
Well, I think you're far more likely to be treated by somebody in the NHS who is an immigrant, rather than to have them queuing behind you within the NHS. And I think when you look at British polling surveys, I think the British public have a very nuanced point of view about immigration. There are many people who come to this country to work in our NHS and to work in our care services as well. And the British public overwhelmingly do support controlled migration when people are coming here to support our public services. So I think it's really important that when people do come here, to keep us healthy, to save our lives, to care for our loved ones, to help them live with dignity and independence, that when they come here legally on those schemes, that we welcome them with open arms. But at the same time, that shouldn't be an excuse for the government not to invest in people right here in the UK. And you may remember that during the general election campaign, it was only the Liberal Democrats who were championing the cause of giving our care workers a higher minimum wage, an additional £2 every hour, so that the people in the UK who are already working in the care sector stay in the care sector, and people who have left the care sector to work in other sectors, whether that's hospitality or supermarkets or Amazon warehouses, whether they actually decide to come back to the care service because we actually pay them properly.
Yeah.
Well, talking about the pay, sorry, Ben, go on, you pick up.
Sorry, Daisy, just continuing on that question, the OBR revealed a couple of days back that low-skilled migrants are costing taxpayers 150 grand a pop, and piling the pressure on public services is far outweighing the tax take for low earners. So while we do appreciate our doctors and nurses who have come from abroad, the figures say that it's disproportionate.
But the fact of the matter is that there are lots of reasons why there are pressures on our public services, and migration flows is one of those factors, by all means certainly not the largest factor. One of the reasons why our public services are so overstretched is because the Conservative government have absolutely run them into the ground. If you just think about what's happened since 2015 when the Conservatives have been in power on their own. They've slashed public health budgets by 25%. These are public services. These are programmes that help people to stop smoking, to help them lose weight, to live healthier lifestyles, to stop to help them with tackle their addictive behaviours. I mean, these are really important programmes in the community, and the Conservative government has cut funding for those. The Conservative government promised to recruit 6,000 GPs. Now we have 500 fewer GPs as a result of the Conservatives' legacy. And so actually there are many reasons why there's pressure on our public services. And one of them, the most significant one, is because the Conservatives have driven our public services into the ground. The public recognises that, and that's absolutely why the Conservatives have had the worst result in their history.
Of course, if the Conservatives were here, they would say there are lots of reasons for austerity, not least the financial crisis. We've been through COVID. We've also seen a war in Ukraine. But I just want to talk about something you said yesterday. You said if Labour do not have, and I quote, the right level of ambition on the NHS, then you will hold their feet to the fire. A matter of hours later, we heard that they'd settled with the British Medical Association, awarding this 22.3% pay rise to junior doctors who now want to be known as resident doctors, which, is still actually is a significant increase at a time when most people in the private sector aren't seeing any form of pay rise, and yet these resident doctors are still warning of further strikes. Now, is that the kind of ambition that you wanted to see and the kind of investment that you want to see into the NHS?
Look, I think it's a good first step that this dispute has been resolved for now. The fact of the matter is that our NHS is hemorrhaging staff. We're losing doctors and nurses to other sectors in the UK, but also to health services around the world. And if we want to rebuild our NHS, if we want people to be able to get the care they need when they need it, then we've got to retain our workforce. And part of the answer for that, not the whole answer, but part of the answer is pay. But as I say, it's just a first step. What we Liberal Democrats want to see is a really ambitious budget in October. We want the Labour government to use the budget to be a budget to save our NHS and care services. And as part of that, we want to see an increase in day-to-day spending, not by taxing struggling families, but by reversing the tax cuts for the big banks and closing the loopholes in capital gains tax so the wealthiest pay a little bit more. But we also want to see borrowing to repair our crumbling hospitals and GP surgeries too.
OK, and Daisy, just finally, what's your thoughts on this latest scandal embroiling the government and Sir Keir Starmer, not least the donor, Lord Ali, who has gifted all sorts of freebies to the Prime Minister and his wife. Is that par for the course? Because some people this morning saying that, of course, our leaders need to look prim and proper on the world stage. Others saying that, quite frankly, it stinks.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I think there are so many strange rules that even I'm discovering in Parliament about what is and isn't permissible. And maybe it's part of the modernisation committee that's just been established in Parliament needs to look at some of these rules and work out, whether they're out of date, whether they need to be changed. But what I can say for now is that whilst the rules permit this, what's just really important is that people follow the rules by declaring their interests. But let's have that debate and let's see whether the rules need to be changed.
Daisy Cooper, Deputy Leader of the Lib Dems, thank you. It's a busier conference, I suppose, than last time you were there, with 72 MPs on the books now. So, yeah, thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, the largest number of Lib Dem MPs since 1923.
Oh, really? 1923?
Yeah, we've got some breaking news. Just whilst we're doing that interview, if you saw me working away there, I was just looking at this coming in. You'll remember the shocking story of the commentator, John Hunt, well known from 5 Live and other channels. His wife and 2 daughters were murdered at home by crossbow on the 9th of July. And in the last few minutes, we've just heard that Kyle Clifford, the 26-year-old boyfriend of one of his daughters, has been charged with their murders. This is the murders of Carol, Louise and Hannah Hunt. Charlie Peters is in the studio actually to talk about an exclusive story, but you can actually give us a bit of background to all of this, because it's one of those stories that really shocked the nation and will go down in history probably as one of the most horrific killings ever.
And I was in Bushey reporting on the scene when that incident broke, and it was capturing the nation's attention, not only due to the horrific nature of those killings, but also because there was a manhunt soon after. And one of the reasons why the major crime unit for Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire have only just now been able to bring in these charges is because their chief suspect, Kyle Clifford, the 26-year-old, has been incapacitated to some degree in hospital since then due to injuries that he sustained due to the course of the police operation to detain him. That took place over a day from Bushey. He then moved to Enfield it's alleged, after that incident where he went on the run from the police, but was then detained by officers not only from the armed response vehicles, but also officers from the counter-terrorism specialist firearms officers were seen on the location at the time. The reason why those forces were deployed, it was said at the time, is because the suspect was armed with a crossbow. Police sources told me that a crossbow is a police officer's worst fear. Those bolts can break through the body armour they have for dealing with knives. That Kevlar not fit for dealing with crossbow bolts. And so the highest level of armed response was deployed in this case. But we now have these charges, 3 counts of murder, 1 of impersonating another person, but also 2 counts of possessing an offensive weapon. Carl Clifford will be appearing at Westminster Magistrates Court from 10 a.m. this morning.
And John Hunt, the BBC commentator involved, who of course lost his wife and daughter, he returned to work bravely a week ago. He called 7 races at Brighton Racecourse, so back on the microphone despite the trauma that's been engulfing him the last few months. Very brave chap. Our thoughts are with him.
Yeah, absolutely. But Charlie, let's talk about Rotherham, shall we? Because this is an exclusive story that you've been following closely. And of course, a sexual exploitation survivor was ordered to remove a demand for her abuser to be deported. This is a revelation that you can tell us more about.
Yeah, so I was in Sheffield Crown Court last week for the sentencing of 7 men from Operation Stovewood. That's the National Crime Agency investigation into these historic abuse allegations and the scandal that happened in the South Yorkshire town. And I have to say, I was the only reporter in the court when the victim impact statements were delivered. One of the survivors standing up in the witness box next to the judge and telling her abusers, 20 years ago you groomed me, 10 years ago I started my fight for justice. Now you took my childhood, you took my innocence, I am taking your freedom, I am your karma. Incredibly brave and powerful delivery. But just before she gave that statement, before she came into the courtroom, the CPS barrister and the judge had a discussion, which I overheard, in which the CPS said any decision on whether or not they remain in this country lies with the Home Office. It's not for this courtroom to decide. And having spoken with the survivor since she delivered that speech, I've seen copies of the original statement she wanted to deliver, in which she made a final request, quite politely saying, I'd like to request that 2 of the men involved in this abuse, who she says were born in Pakistan, have dual nationality and can therefore be deported. She said, I'd like them to be deported after they've served their sentences. Those 2 men given 16 years and 25 years in prison, respectively. 2 of the most appalling abusers who are in the dock for those 106 years being handed down. But that request was removed. Now, under the UK Borders Act, any foreign national offender serving a custodial sentence over 12 months should be deported. However, with the grooming gang scandal, there have been several cases like this where that has not happened. The most notorious case is that of Kari Ralph in Rochdale. He was sentenced to 6 years. A decade later, he's still fighting deportation, even though he's had his British nationality stripped due to various ECHR and legal battles he's put on. Now, I think this survivor fears the same will happen again with her abusers. That's why she wanted to say in court, in open justice, for everyone to hear. Thankfully, we were there to hear it, what she wanted to happen, that she wanted those abusers to be out of the country. She said that she had no confidence that after those sentences are served, and they'll serve half of them, that they will be safe to be released into the community. I should also add very quickly that under the 2022 Nationality and Borders Act, the government introduced a provision that any country that refuses to accept foreign national offenders being deported should be and could be subject to visa penalties. So the government could punish Pakistan and say, if you don't accept these grooming gang abusers, we won't let your workers come to this country. Now, I understand, my sources tell me that the Foreign Office has consistently blocked that power being used. Suella Braverman last night told me she wants that power to be used. Lee Anderson has also told me he wants that power to be used. Laura Farris, the safeguarding minister, told me in March she thought it would be sensible for that power to be used. The Home Office last night told me it would not comment on individual cases.
That's just insanity. Why would we deliberately choose to pay for child sexual abusers to be here when they don't have to be?
Well, under ECHR rulings, they can claim a right to family life. They can say that they'll be at threat if they move back home. These legal battles have succeeded, but this survivor wanted to let it known through sharing her statement with me that she wants these abusers to be deported. They're evil men, she said, and they've got to be let out of the country.
Charlotte, you did sterling work in Rotherham, and you were indeed, as you said, the only journalist in that courtroom for the victim impact statements. Why? I don't know. Make your own minds up for that. But keep up the good work and give us an update when you get it.
Thank you.
Right, let's get an update from Alex Deakin on your forecast.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sparkling day of sunshine for most of us. It is a bit cool out there, first thing, and it is a bit grey in a few spots, but the mist and the low cloud should tend to clear away. The breeze is picking up a little bit across Kent and along the south coast, and it's not gloriously sunny everywhere. There is quite a bit of thicker cloud across parts of northern Scotland, with even a little bit of rain and drizzle here and there. But for most places, it is a day of September sunshine, and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine by this afternoon. Certainly warmer than last week, 19, 20, getting into the low 20s in a few spots across the southeast and probably parts of the northwest as well, though there will be still quite a bit of thick cloud across the Northern Isles, especially Shetland, well into the evening time. A little bit of drizzly rain here, and quite cloudy at times over the Western Isles, but much of the mainland of Scotland dry, fine and sunny. Same goes for Northern Ireland. Plenty of sunshine here, lasting well into this evening, and much of England and Wales too. As the easterly breeze starts to pick up, we could just start to see a bit more cloud coming into parts of East Anglia and across the southeast in general. That will increase as we go through the night, so turning quite cloudy across these eastern areas. Some mist and fog likely through the night as well, but the thicker cloud and the rain and drizzle should clear away from Shetland, and the vast majority having a dry night. Still quite cool, temperatures well down into single figures, certainly in some rural spots. The nights, though, will get a bit warmer as we go through the rest of this week. So a bit of a grey start, maybe even parts of Wales starting a bit drab tomorrow, but I'm pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will tend to melt away by late morning at the latest, and that will again reveal quite a bit of sunshine tomorrow. Some of these eastern coasts may stay a little misty, more of a breeze across the south tomorrow again, so perhaps feeling cooler in that breeze, but again in the sunshine, temperatures likely to get into the low 20s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time now for the Great British Giveaway, your chance to win the equivalent of an extra £3,000 per month, every month, for a whole year.
Yeah, that's a whopping 36 grand in tax-free cash. Here's all the details you need to make it yours.
This is your chance. Good luck.
It is Freshers' Week up and down the country, lots of students settling into their new lives. But what does that mean for the parents, many of them struggling to adjust to an empty nest? One of those people, Paul Coy.
Yeah, our sportsman Paul Coy. We'll see if we can get him in to discuss his sadness, his grief.
He actually described it as grief.
Did he?
Yeah. It's a real syndrome, and we'll be delving into that after this. See you in a moment.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's have a look at this story in the Telegraph, Charlie. And this is about Anglican Church, the Church of England, dropping the word church in favour of something a bit more modern sounding. Words such as community. Why are we afraid of the word church?
Well, that's my question. I mean, you've got to assume that they think it solves some kind of problem. But I think, you know, there are a lot of people who feel very strongly about their particular religious institution, whatever they all have different names, don't they? And if you rename one, do you have to rename all of them? Can we no longer use an individual name for different religions' community buildings?
Are you religious?
I'm spiritual.
You sound like him. Yeah.
No, certainly.
Oh, don't get any started on me.
Do I believe in a God? Yes. Do I believe in any of the particular gods that are offered to us? Still undecided.
I'm like you. I said exactly that.
You two are the same. You two are exactly.
What about you, Anna? Are you particularly religious?
Well, I'm not a proper religious. I won't name myself as a religious, but I really do respect religions. And we have bigger problems to think about.
Is it a sign of where we're at in this secular society?
Yes.
We're moving more and more towards that. The Anglican Church feels that the only way to be relevant is to take away any reference to church going, to being religious.
I think if the substance of what you're offering is good, it doesn't matter what it's called. You know, so if people are going to find solace and peace in a place that makes them feel better, they're not going to care too much about what it's called. So I think relabeling it, rebranding it, I don't know, maybe it'll help, maybe it won't, but it's going to certainly upset a lot of people, I should think.
And people whose religion is important to them and kind of central to their lives, you can imagine.
Absolutely.
There's a reason Justin Welby is nicknamed by some quarters the Archbishop of Woke. Maybe this adds fuel to the fire, who knows?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, up and down the country, many parents are preparing or have indeed already sent their child off to university.
Indeed, but sometimes it can leave parents struggling to cope with the, quote, empty nest syndrome their child leaves behind. So joining us now to discuss how to cope with sending off your sprogs to university, or not so sprogs, is broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy. Nice to see you this early. This is a real thing, isn't it? It's our colleague Paul Coitz, our sports expert, describes it as grief, sending your young adults off to uni and leaving the nest for the first time.
Yes, I think grief is the right word, because it's an ending, and it's not just an ending with your relationship with your child. It changes from here on in, but it also is very much about your identity. Your identity as a parent is weakening. You'll always be that child's parent, but you're not going to have the same involvement on a daily basis. And so you're left to think, OK, well, what does my life look like going forward? What's my relationship? If you're in a relationship with a partner, how is that going to change? And like all elements of grief, there's going to be a bit of a process. There's going to be that transition period where you adjust to your new life, just as your sprogs, as you call them, are adjusting to their new exciting phase of their life. You too need to start to think about this as a new exciting phase in your life. But in the very beginning, all that people can really think about is the loss.
Let's bring in Coity now, because I was trying to say to you at the weekend, as I messaged to check in and see how you're doing, and I was saying it's just a sign, as is grief, of your love. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But you still haven't been able to go into her bedroom.
Oh, my goodness me. I've put tape over it and everything's clear. And I think maybe Lucy can answer this for me as well, because I had no idea quite how bad it would be. I imagined I would be a little upset, but honestly, the next morning I go downstairs and there's tears rolling down my eyes. Then I go and see my wife. She's in the kitchen as well. But sometimes it's been crazy, and I feel almost silly saying this, but I don't know. Who usually are we crying for? Is it for us? Is it the fact that we don't have them there? Or is it because we're worried about the child? I'm kind of lost in the whole thing.
Well, it's all of that, really. It's partly literally the daily interaction that you would have enjoyed with your child is no longer available to you. And also there's a sense of wistfulness that they're off now, having this new life, meeting new people that you don't know about, certainly not in the way that you would have known about their school friends and the people that you had over for sleepovers. This is a whole new terrain for them, and you need to adjust to that. But it's also about your life now. OK, so I don't have to spend my weekends ferrying them to rugby or ballet or doing maths homework. So what do I have in my life going forward? So it's about the actual relationship that you had that you can't have any longer. You can't have that daily interaction, but also And now what? What's going to fill the gap? What's going to fill the void? Is it going to bring my partner and I closer together? That will be the most amazing thing. Are we going to take up new hobbies? But right now, you're probably not ready for that. You just need to process the ending of this phase. And you may recall that you might have had a similar experience when they went off to kind of big school for the first time, usually around 4 or 5 years old. It's a really big moment, but it's a much shorter period of time. You're not seeing them for about 4 or 5 hours a day. This, you might not hear from them for the next 3 weeks because they're so busy and enjoying their new life. And that might make you feel a little bit left behind. But that's the natural evolution of things. As Isabel says, it's partly around the love that you have that will generate this loss. But also your role as a parent is to do yourself out of a job. And this is the biggest moment of realizing what that means.
I'm feeling, no offence, but I'm actually feeling worse about it now after all that.
Well,
makes me
I'll
feel
cheer you
even
up,
worse.
Coity, because as I said to you, in this day and age, she'll be back before you know it. She won't be able to afford her first home, and you'll be wishing she'd leave you by the time she's 35. So it's just a few weeks.
It's okay. I spoke to her yesterday. Everything's
You're in constant
fine.
contact.
You know what?
It's
I do feel like the worst is over. I mean, everything's okay as long as she's fine and she's happy. Then I'm okay. But it's not quite. I don't think I'm going to take up whist or you know
bridge.
Anything like that, or crocheting, yeah. I think I'm all right at the moment, though.
Paul, do you think it's... I say this with respect.
Yes.
It's going to sound a very, maybe insulting question, but it's not. It's with sincerity. Do you feel like maybe it's the start of the last leg of...
Oh, my goodness,
I mean, that's it. I mean, kids are done now.
One foot in the grave now.
I know.
But you know what I mean? I mean that honestly and with sincerity. Like, it's the kind of... And you're not old by any means.
Autumn of your life.
Yeah, it's the...
Wow.
Autumn leaves. I know what you're saying, Ben.
Was that rude of me?
I think,
kick a dog when it's out.
That's OK. I'm just looking forward to the sport in just a second. But the thing is, no, it's the fact that they are such a huge part of your life. I know parents that don't enjoy, they pretend to enjoy being parents and say, oh, yeah, well, I'd rather have, someone else look after my kids. I like to go. I like spending time with my kids. Yeah. They're my best friends, along with my wife, and we're a very close family. So when one goes, then it really is like I just really miss her. That's what it's going to be. It's as simple as that.
I sent my boy off to school for the first time last week, and the same. It feels like I did cry. It feels like I'm never going to get those magical days back.
She's absolutely right, because it was, and that was what it was like when I took her for the first time to primary school when she was 4 years old. I remember walking back and blubbing and thinking, oh, for goodness sake, thinking this is it now. I've lost her to school, and it's the first time I felt that way. And it just feels exactly the same again, sort of 14 years old.
Lucy put her finger on it. It is the kind of absolute poisoner, really, of being a parent, is that everything you're doing, all that effort and love into rearing your child, is ultimately so they leave you. And it's hard, but that's what you want. You want them to go and flee the nest, spread their wings, the world's their oyster, but leave you behind crying about it.
And therefore, that's where you kind of need to pay attention to yourself, because the worst thing is to let your child know how much you miss them, that in fact you almost can't survive.
I know now, Lucy. I tell you, she knows now.
OK, Lucy Beresford, thank you for joining us this morning. Paul, some people on your side just saying man up.
Oh, really? You know what? That I got to tell you, that's the thing that really bugs me. It's like you sort of joke about it and go, "Oh man, you know what?" And there's nothing wrong with showing love for your family or showing love for your kids. Nope. And the fact that if they go and if you feel that you're going to miss them, you can say, "Oh yeah, well go on." It's nonsense.
Well, yeah,
Amen
nonsense.
to that.
Absolute nonsense.
Some people have a go at me for talking about my kids all the time, but I'm sorry. They're my biggest achievement. I love them, and I'm going to tell the world about it. I don't care what you think.
Good for you. Good for you. You know what? I'll be OK, and everything will be all right. And I wish her well. She's going to be great.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's harder than I imagined, and everybody I speak to says exactly the same.
You have to get yourself down hobbycraft, Paul.
That's what I'll do. I'll start crocheting.
You can make us some gifts maybe when you do your sports appearances in the morning.
Are we doing some sport now? Should we talk through the sport? We're having a quick break. Oh, we're having a quick break. Look, we'll get you some tissues.
I need to get myself together.
A stiff drink of hot tea.
Yeah,
and we'll go through all the sport in just a moment. See you there.
The latest GB News travel. Well, good morning. I'm Johnny Ratner. On the M65 in Lancashire, one lane's been closed eastbound from junction 5 to 6 towards Blackburn after a lorry caught fire. And in Greater Manchester, the A578 remains closed on the Wigan Road at Lee, at the scene of a collision that took place just after 6 o'clock this morning. The A12 in Essex remains closed southbound at the Markstay exit southwest of Colchester after overnight roadworks overran. There are long queues on the approach back along the A120. South London, Croxted Road shut between Dulwich and Herne Hill for emergency water main repairs, and London Overground trains are suspended out of New Cross Gate to Crystal Palace and West Croydon following a fire alert at Brockley. It also means that Southern trains and Thameslink trains are suspended in London Bridge and East Croydon. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public. Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
OK, Paul Coyte's had he's had an arrest. He's wiped his tears.
I'm on an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah. Well, we won't mention Spurs. Let's talk about...
You know what? This is the funny thing. Is that we said that yesterday. That happened Saturday, take Ruby, and then what's the thing that happens the next day? Spurs, Arsenal. Ask the other great love of mine and get beaten by the Arsenal.
Can I just say, I do remember about 6 months ago when you heard that the derby was going to be the weekend that Ruby was going away, and you were worried that it might be on the same day, and you weren't even sure you were even going to go with Ruby.
And you said to me, you can't go.
I said,
you can't go to football on that day. So they moved it to the Sunday. So then it was on the Saturday. So wish it was on the same day.
Anyway, we digress.
Right, Hollywood derby then. Birmingham played Wrexham. I know it sounds bizarre calling it the Hollywood derby, but Tom Brady, the NFL superstar who's part owner of Birmingham City. There's Tom there on the left with David Beckham on the right-hand side. I mean, they were all there, all the stars, and Ryan Reynolds, although couldn't make it. There's Rob McElhenney there with Tom Brady. Ryan Reynolds couldn't be there, but then there's Rob holding up him on FaceTime, so he managed to watch the game. Birmingham City, and by the way, the result, if anybody cares, apart from Birmingham, Wrexham or Hollywood, was Birmingham 3, Wrexham 1. But they're both doing amazingly well in League One, and if it's another promotion, then Wrexham will be up for the 3rd time on the trot. So it is working very well. It's great to get these Hollywood owners, you know.
How much money has Ryan Reynolds pumped into that club?
I don't know exactly, and I don't think he's even said exactly how much. But you know what was really interesting is Jeff Stelling, you know, the famous Jeff Stelling. He was telling me, and I don't know whether this is out there, but he was saying that...
It will be now.
I know, it is there. Sorry, Jeff, he's busy right now. But anyway, is that they were looking for a club to invest in. They wanted to get involved in football, and there was a few that were on the shortlist, and one of those was Hartlepool. And they'd even spoken to him and said, "Look, invest." And apparently the chairman was saying, "Well, I don't really think it's going to work out for us. I don't really know whether I want to sell for this much." So look what it's done for Wrexham.
Oh well.
And there were so many Wrexham fans that were actually sneering at it, thinking, "We don't want your American money coming in here and in now." Look how well it's working.
A really quick word about the Championship, because I truly just want to get to the deep sea diving.
The Champions League, yeah.
It's quite exciting, yeah.
Yeah, the Champions League, yeah, that's tonight. It's the young boys of Bern who play Aston Villa. Aston Villa are back in the Champions League. I say first time in the Champions League. They won the European Cup, but Aston Villa are playing on the plastic surface of young boys of Bern at the plastic pitch. Liverpool away AC Milan, playing at the San Siro tonight. So Champions League is back. It's always a bit of a slow start, but once it gets going. But now there's 36 teams. They have 8 games each, 4 at home, 4 away. They've changed the whole format. It'll probably take me all day to explain the whole thing, so I won't. So there we are. That's what we're
deep sea diving.
Yeah, we spoke about this, didn't we? This is free diving, the Deepest Breath, which was the show that was on. It was a documentary that was on Netflix, which was just heartbreaking.
Well, it was just terrifying.
Now have a look at this. This man here. Now, this is in Corsica. This happened over the weekend. Russian Alexei Molchanov. He is the free diving world champion and set a new world record, 125 metres. Now, to give a little context on this, there's no aqualung, he's got to hold the breath all the way. They hold their breath for sometimes up to about 8 to 10 minutes. And it goes down, down, down. Then you can imagine the pressure that's on the body. It's not safe at all. You've got to be very slow when you come back up again. The speed is very important as well. And when you watch the documentary, and if you do get a chance to see this on Netflix...
Even the first 10 minutes,
What's it called, sorry?
It's called The Deepest Breath. And it's the story of Alessia Zecchini, who is the women's world champion. She always dreamed of doing this for some reason.
Her partner's
And her partner, Stephen Keenan. And I don't think it's any secret that he died doing this. It's just... And when it's one of these things, I found myself watching it and looking for something to watch, and I started watching this, I was completely enthralled by it. And it is a sport, and it's obviously extremely dangerous. And when you see... I think you saw it, didn't you, Izzy? Often when they come up, after being down for so long, the eyes are bulging, there's no breath left in them.
I mean,
sometimes they have to be given the kiss of life. I mean, look, he looks fine, doesn't he?
Yeah. Whereas, I mean, if you
He's Russian. I don't know whether he's actually cheating, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, there he is. Look, everybody applauding there. He's set a new world record. But it's one of these things that... What's the alternative of setting the world record? Death?
Well, yeah, how do you know what the limit is? I mean, surely if you go over that line, you're finished.
Because if you're going down 125 metres, you've got to come back up 125 metres as well, at a certain pace, because if you go too fast, the brain can't handle that. It's just the most terrifying sport, and it's something...
Very impressive,
It actually reminds me of when I got to the bottom of the Harold Hill swimming baths pool and picked up the brick in my pyjamas, and that must have been 12 feet deep. And I'm sure I started getting the bends as I started coming up again. Well, not quite, but it wasn't quite 125. It wasn't quite 125 metres.
You won't catch those guys puffing on a blueberry fizz vape, will you?
No, you certainly wouldn't. No.
Right, Coity, well, that was
Neither would I, quite frankly. Thank you very much.
Extended session with you. Enjoyed it very much. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Paul.
See you tomorrow.
Still to come, our newspaper panel will discuss why the Chief of the Civil Service is under pressure. That's next. This is GB News Breakfast with Ben and Isabel. Back in a tick.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
EasyJet is launching a new recruitment drive focused on attracting cabin crew members over 50 and those even considering retirement.
Well, the initiative is called Returnships, and it's inspired by research that suggests that 75% of people over 50 years old believe that now is the ideal time to embark on a new career.
Joining us now to discuss what it takes to embark on a second career as cabin crew is Helen Williams. Good morning, Helen.
Hi, good morning, Helen.
Welcome. Just touching down in our studio.
It is. I've had a few days off and now I'm here.
So you are now cabin crew.
I am.
What inspired you to get into it? What did you do before? How did it all come around?
Oh, so when I graduated, I took an office job with my grad scheme, and that job lasted 6 months, and I started working for a European carrier. I did just over 5 years at that European carrier and had an absolutely fabulous time. I then went on to a wet lease operation with an Irish carrier and another mainline UK carrier. I then decided to have time out. I had a business, I had a family, I had children, and last autumn I decided, why not? Let's go back and do it all again. So returning to that European carrier that I'd worked at when I was in my early 20s.
And what is that like for you now, returning that bit older, having that life experience, having your children? Do you think that's been a benefit to you?
It's absolutely been a benefit. I mean, the amount of parents that thank me for helping me with their small children when they're crying on a flight. I am that person now.
When you went back for a second time,
Yeah.
did you notice more sort of older people amongst your sort of colleagues?
I did. So when I returned onto my initial course in March of this year, just over half the course were over the age of 30.
Wow.
Which was absolutely phenomenal. And I was expecting to return and be with a lot of younger, 18, 19, 24. I was expecting to be that dinosaur. And that first day of training, to find out that I wasn't the dinosaur, you have no idea how exciting that was. And they've gone on, that particular group, to be phenomenal crew members.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's take a look at what's making the news this morning for one last time with Nikki Hodgson and Alex Armstrong. And let us start this hour, Alex, with the Civil Service Chief under pressure amid anger over leaks and briefings. This is inside The Guardian.
Yep, so more of this leaking being placed on Simon Case, who is, I believe, one of the top dogs in the civil service. And the tension between the Cabinet Office and Simon Case is apparently reaching breaking point. Of course, he is expected to leave his role in January, but there hasn't been any formal announcement of that yet. Now, I thought this was interesting because leaking is part of government. It is literally part of how government is done. They leak stories themselves all the time. Alistair Campbell famously leaked almost everything out of the Cabinet Office in order to sort of A/B test how the public would feel about certain policies. Now, I think this government should be doing more of it, because if it actually listened to and got some feedback on its policies before it decided to freeze its pensioners to death in the winter, then they might avoid being so unpopular. But I just think that you can't stop leaking in government. It is part of the function of government, unfortunately, because they need to know whether the public and whether the economy is going to respond well to what it does. And I just think this whole furore over Simon Case is just overblown and is now dragging in, of course, Sue Gray as well.
As per usual. But the actual issue is that if you're at the top of the civil service, you don't leak yourself. You get your juniors to do it.
That's true.
That's the tactical bit.
They're saying it's coming... I mean, obviously, he's refuting these things. Let's be very clear. He's saying there's no leaking coming out of my department. There's just fingers being pointed at him, which I think is silly. But I think the public have to actually really understand. I mean, I've worked in politics myself, and I know how important leaking is.
It's part of political
you will be asked to leak.
But they're not wanting him to leak about Wahid Ali, which is where these rumours have allegedly come from.
Correct.
And also sources have been saying that Sue Gray allegedly blocked security access for Starmer on certain issues, which is obviously highly embarrassing to the Prime Minister. It's been denied, but this has apparently been leaked out over alleged push for funding for this Casement Park in West Belfast, which was all kicking off yesterday afternoon. So, you know, it's all very well and good if you're leaking stuff to your advantage to test the temperature of what's going on out there. But if it's actually to undermine the authority of the Prime Minister...
Well, there's a lot of arguments being made against Sue Gray, who seems to be more powerful than the Prime Minister at the moment, and there's obviously that's going to come to a head.
People talk about the deep state and the blob and make fun of those terms, but in what planet is Sue Gray allowed to be more powerful than the PM?
Well,
Who is she?
This is the big thing that politicians have been speaking about, and the Tories were going to try to tackle this, but the civil service services become so powerful that they can withhold information that's potentially critical to a policy. And obviously, what Simon Case is doing God's work, in my opinion.
To go back to Sue Gray, her job as somebody with a certain status and experience is to make a decision that she thinks is to the Prime Minister's advantage. So if she knows that he doesn't need certain information because it will imperil him, for example, then that's perfectly reasonable for her to advise.
That's true.
There's nothing strange about that.
Is there anything strange, Alex and Nikki, about Keir Starmer being interested in a right-wing policy to tackle migration? Or is this British pragmatism?
Oh, well, you heard it here first, didn't you? No more Rwanda. Let's talk about Albania. This is a very, very popular policy. It's something that Italy have been trouncing, of course. They have 36,000 illegal immigrants being processed in Albania, not deported, but processed there, which is very similar to the proposed Rwanda bill. Keir Starmer seems to have a twinkle in his eye about it. He's just given, was it $4 million to Meloni?
Likes giving you a cash away, doesn't he?
It does.
But he's not, let's be very clear about this, he's not given her $4 million to back the Albania deal.
No, but he's flirting with it.
He's giving her money to help cooperate with her to stamp out irregular.
Also, how can you even start to think about tackling a problem like the small boats when you can't even identify it properly? Why is he calling it irregular migration now?
Well, that's just a change of language, isn't it, Ben? We know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of the word illegal because that's a woke thing. They don't like the word illegal.
It's not a woke thing.
Yes, it is.
It's a national law thing. There's no such thing as an illegal human.
Well, it's just calling something that is something. It's something different.
But whatever you want to call it, irregular illegal arrivals to Italy by sea have gone down 60% since 2022. Something that he acknowledged yesterday in this bilateral meeting. Was something that he was rightly very interested in.
Yeah.
You know, I think dibs to somebody who's prepared to
completely
cross
agree.
a party line away from ideology
I
and
completely
see,
agree.
You know,
it shows political maturity.
Yeah. Well, it does indeed, but it shows that the deterrent works, doesn't it? So, you know, perhaps we should have not so quickly scrapped the Rwanda deal. We didn't even give Rwanda a chance.
Forgive me, but it's so obvious to me, and I don't know why so many people are missing this, but the difference between Rwanda and Albania is that the Supreme Court in this country deemed that Rwanda was not a safe country. That was why they couldn't proceed with that. Whereas Albania, there isn't that question.
Well, yeah,
so
that's
presumably
true.
It wasn't the location. It was the location of the processing centre rather than actually the processing centre.
That is what the courts say, but of course it was fit for the United Nations to send refugees there as well, and other countries deemed Rwanda to be a safe country. It was just European countries
And then there was plenty of evidence of when migrants were protesting that they were met with violence.
That's also very true, Nikki.
Germany seems to be happy with it and are now using our paid-for setup.
And Arsenal advertised Rwanda on their shirt, so if it's not safe, then,
if you wanted a better endorsement, Arsenal are advertising. Visit Rwanda.
Oh, dear.
Anyway.
Right, well, let's go on. Sorry, I'm...
what would you like to do? Well, what should we do? Nikki, your choice.
Let's talk about sick Britain, shall we?
Oh, lovely, yes.
Yeah, so 4 million and rising is the number of people on long-term sick.
Are they sick?
Well, that's the question, Ben, isn't it? First of all, I want to disabuse of some kind of perception that actually 1.2 million of those people are aged 50 to 69. So there's this myth that young people don't want to work and they're the ones that are going off with mental health problems and all the rest of it. That isn't true. It's actually people who are ageing in the population that are not getting seen by the NHS because of ridiculous waiting times and genuinely have decided to kind of check out of work. So, you know, it's not young people who've decided to throw in the towel because they can't be bothered to get a job and go to one. This is older people whose health is in decline and they haven't looked after themselves in the first place.
What's going on here that's not happening in Europe? We're the sick man of Europe, according to this review.
One argument is that the NHS has been in crisis for so many years.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
OK, Alex, unfortunately, we have to go to the weather, so...
It's all right, no worries.
Can't get your
Weather's more
thoughts on that.
important.
But you can have the weather forecast with Alex Deakin instead.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sparkling day of sunshine for most of us. It is a bit cool out there, first thing, and it is a bit grey in a few spots, but the mist and the low cloud should tend to clear away. The breeze is picking up a little bit across Kent and along the south coast, and it's not gloriously sunny everywhere. There is quite a bit of thicker cloud across parts of northern Scotland, with even a little bit of rain and drizzle here and there. But for most places, it is a day of September sunshine, and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine by this afternoon. Certainly warmer than last week, 19, 20, getting into the low 20s in a few spots across the southeast and probably parts of the northwest as well, though there will be still quite a bit of thick cloud across the Northern Isles, especially Shetland, well into the evening time. A little bit of drizzly rain here, and quite cloudy at times over the Western Isles, but much of the mainland of Scotland dry, fine and sunny. Same goes for Northern Ireland. Plenty of sunshine here, lasting well into this evening, and much of England and Wales too. As the easterly breeze starts to pick up, we could just start to see a bit more cloud coming into parts of East Anglia and across the southeast in general. That will increase as we go through the night, so turning quite cloudy across these eastern areas. Some mist and fog likely through the night as well, but the thicker cloud and the rain and drizzle should clear away from Shetland, and the vast majority having a dry night. Still quite cool, temperatures well down into single figures, certainly in some rural spots. The nights, though, will get a bit warmer as we go through the rest of this week. So a bit of a grey start, maybe even parts of Wales starting a bit drab tomorrow, but I'm pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will tend to melt away by late morning at the latest, and that will again reveal quite a bit of sunshine tomorrow. Some of these eastern coasts may stay a little misty, more of a breeze across the south tomorrow again, so perhaps feeling cooler in that breeze, but again in the sunshine, temperatures likely to get into the low 20s.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems on the M9 south of Stirling this morning. The motorway is blocked southbound from junction 10 to 9 towards the Bannockburn exit, where a police investigation is underway, as we understand from Scotland Police. And on the M62 in West Yorkshire, lanes closed eastbound, junction 22 to 23 towards Huddersfield, past the scene of an accident, looking really slow. And on the M25, right on the border with Essex and Hertfordshire, a car's broken down just before the Holmesdale Tunnel in the central divide. The outside lane is closed off, causing queues back towards the M11 through the roadworks. The M40 is blocked southbound, heading away from High Wycombe, just after junction 3, the Loudwater exit, at the scene of an accident. And London Overground can't run New Cross Gate to Crystal Palace and West Croydon following a fire alert at Brockley. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You can. And good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Sir Keir Starmer stands defiant over taking gifts from Lord Ali.
The Prime Minister has suggested he'll continue to take donations from the Labour peer and prominent party donor.
After accepting gifts of clothes for himself and his wife, Starmer gave Lord Ali a pass to access Downing Street.
As Sir Keir Starmer shows great interest in Italy's Albania immigration deal, the government announces £75 million of investment for a new border security command.
And disgraced former BBC News reader Hugh Edwards avoids jail as he's sentenced for accessing indecent images of children.
In a GB News exclusive, Rotherham rape gang survivors demand deportation for their abusers, as our reporter Charlie Peter has all the latest.
It's a little cool out there in places and a bit grey for some, but most will have a sparkling day of September sunshine. And for many, it'll be a similar story tomorrow. Join me later for a full forecast.
It's 9 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ben Leo, and this is GB News Breakfast. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Charlie Peters is here for a double whammy of stories. One that's been breaking in the last hour or so. Kyle Clifford, 26-year-old, has been charged with the murders of Carol Louise and Hannah Hunt, who were the wife and daughters of BBC racing commentator John Hunt, the Crossbow murders story from a month or so back. He's been charged in Bushey, Hertfordshire. The murders were in Bushey in Hertfordshire, and he's just been charged this morning, Charlie.
Yes, he'll appear at Westminster Magistrates Court later this morning via video link, and I think that's important to stress because of the reason why it's taken 2 months for this charging to take place. Now, at the time of the manhunt that took place in order to detain Kyle Clifford, we learnt from the major crime unit involved, which included the Metropolitan Police's counter-terrorism specialist firearms officers, that he had sustained significant injuries that had left him incapacitated. But they were very careful to stress that they were not responsible for those injuries, implying that they were self-inflicted. Now, Mr. Clifford will be charged later today in court with 3 counts of murder, an impersonation charge and 2 counts of possessing an offensive weapon. At the time of these offences in early July in Bushey in Hertfordshire, the police said, the major crime unit there for the 3 counties, said that other weapons could have been involved. So that's hinting towards that 2 charges were seen on the offensive weapons. We'll learn more from the prosecution on what that other weapon is on this alleged triple murder. But it was a significant situation in July when this took place, a large police operation, not only to secure the location of those appalling killings, but also the manhunt that soon followed, which led to this man being incapacitated for such a long time that it's taken 2 months for these charges to be put before him.
Yeah, the nature of the deaths and the personal tragedy for John Hunt makes it one of those murders that the nation will never forget. And we pay tribute to John, who actually returned back to work bravely last week, still finding the will to live for his one remaining daughter and the partners of his daughters who lost their lives as well. But goodness me, how on earth you do that, pick yourself up after something like that?
Yeah, he
tribute to him.
He returned to Brighton Racecourse last Monday to call the 7 races there. Brave guy. Our thoughts are with him, as Isabel said.
Let's turn then to this exclusive. You were the only reporter in court last week during the sentencing of one of the individuals involved in a grooming gang in Rotherham, and you were hearing the impact statements of the victims, and actually you learnt an exclusive there that an important detail was ordered to be removed from their impact statement. Tell us more.
So just before one of the survivors gave her personal victim impact statement in the witness box next to the judge, an extraordinary thing to do for a survivor of child abuse. This woman was attacked by over 150 men by the time she was 16, and 5 of her abusers were sat in the dock. The other 2 defendants raised to another survivor. Some of them had abused both of them. She faced them down in the dock as she said, "You took my childhood, you took my innocence, now I am taking your freedom, I am your karma." Undoubtedly one of the most impressive and emotionally charged things I've ever witnessed as a journalist. It was extraordinary. But just before she stood up and delivered that statement, I overheard some discussion between the CPS barristers and the judge where they discussed the upcoming statement and agreed that certain parts had been removed in the orders of the judge, who gets prior sight of these statements in all Crown Court cases. Now, when I spoke to the survivor after, I wanted to know what had been taken away, and she gave me she passed me a copy of this statement, a full copy of the speech she wanted to give. And there was a section at the end where she wanted to make a request that 2 of the abusers, who she said were Pakistani in their nationality, they were born there, should be deported after their sentences are completed.
And they could be deported under the law. It would be perfectly legitimate for that to happen. So the question is, why was she asked to take that out? What are the Home Office saying about it all?
Well, at the time, the CPS, I heard them in the court saying it's for the Home Office to decide, it's not for this court to have that discussion. But I think the survivor was quite upset and annoyed to know that she couldn't make that demand herself personally, as if that was not one for the court. So she's endured this appalling abuse. Finally, she has justice over 22 years on. She wants to make that statement. The Home Office told me last night that they don't comment on individual cases. However, under the UK Borders Act of 2007, any foreign national offender who serves a custodial sentence over 12 months should be deported. That's the law. Unfortunately, there are many cases where that's blocked due to ECHR rulings or the UK's Refugee Convention appropriate situations there. There is also another regulatory issue here that I think is worth raising. Under the Nationality and Borders Act, passed by the last government in 2022, the government now has powers to apply punishments to countries that refuse to accept foreign nationals who've been through their jail system in this country. They can apply visa penalties that stop their workers from coming here. Now, my sources tell me that the Foreign Office have blocked that consistently, so this survivor could be in a situation where her abusers are not deported and there is no punishment applied to the country that refuses to accept them.
Insanity. We can't get rid of child abusers. What does that say about our country? Charlie Peters, thank you. Sterling work. And you mentioned that you were the only reporter in that courtroom. Lots of viewers emailing this morning asking why that is. I'm not expecting you to answer, but the only thing I'd say is make your own minds up. Why do you think?
Right, another big story, of course, here in the UK is the Prime Minister and the gifts that he himself have accepted and, indeed, his wife have accepted. She's on the front of the broadsheets today. They're looking rather sensational. Lady Starmer, it must be said, in a dress she was lent. But the day after all of these allegations were being discussed and came to light about £5,000 worth of dresses at the expense of this donor who's given access to Downing Street, she turns up at London Fashion Week, almost sort of trolling the British public. Some people have suggested.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I described it. Again, my argument is, and the argument of many other people, that this is completely tone-deaf at a time you're taking winter fuel payments from skint pensioners. Not only are you embroiled in a donor row, but then Lady Starmer goes to London Fashion Week.
It.
I don't know what that's about. Catherine Forster is on standby for us to discuss this and other news, including the Health Secretary, who said he is pleased junior doctors have voted to accept a government pay deal worth 22.3% on average over 2 years.
And there's also news in relation to immigration, with Yvette Cooper announcing investment for a new border security command, paving the way for Labour's take on an immigration crackdown. Good morning to you, Catherine. Plenty to talk about. But let's start, shall we, with Lady Starmer on the front of the broadsheets and Sir Keir Starmer being absolutely, well, adamant that the rules have been followed and he hasn't done anything wrong.
Yes, good morning, both. This story not going away, and I think, you know, the fact that Lady Starmer went ahead with this visit to London Fashion Week in this fabulous outfit, which has enabled the papers to put pictures of her looking amazing all over them. Worth saying, the outfit for that was borrowed. But what has struck me is that I was in Rome with the Prime Minister yesterday. He was asked on broadcast, he was asked again in the lobby huddle that we had before we got back on the plane, again and again and again about these donations and questions surrounding the money that he and his wife took from Lord Ali for clothes, for spectacles for him, etc. And basically, he is saying, look, I have done nothing wrong. I am absolutely determined to abide by the rules. I think the rules are very important. I followed the rules. That's why my team went and inquired about what we needed to do. Now, it turns out that, you know, they declared the money for his wife's clothes late. That was a genuine error, but he said, look, you know, I want to follow the rules. Well, sure, technically, he's done nothing wrong. Late declaration, I don't think many people would think a big deal. But I think it's all about the optics, isn't it? Because, of course, this comes at a time that the government are feeling a lot of pressure over the fact they're taking these winter fuel payments away from 10 million pensioners. So then the fact that they, you know, obviously have plenty of money themselves, but are taking extra money to look nice, is quite tricky. And the other thing, of course, is that when he was leader of the opposition, and in general, Sir Keir Starmer has made a lot of saying that, you know, he is the change, he will do things the right way, he is morally upstanding. Look at those terrible Tories when he was in opposition and Boris Johnson or Rishi Sunak took gifts. He was very, very critical of them. So if you're going to hold the Conservatives to those standards, you have to hold yourself to the same standards. So he's saying, look, I haven't done anything wrong. And technically he hasn't. But I do think that to a lot of people, this will look like, one rule for them and another rule for everybody else.
Times earlier this year, a few months back, reported how Keir Starmer had accepted £76,000 worth of freebies, including football tickets, concert tickets, and that made him, apparently, that was more than almost any other MP, and that was according to research by the FT. So he likes a freebie, indeed, and the argument is, should they be allowed to accept these donations, these freebies? Is it lobbying? Is it right? Should we scrap it all together? But elsewhere, Labour, well, the government at least, Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has agreed a 22% pay rise for junior doctors. And Catherine, the thing that struck me about this announcement is the BMA, the union, was saying, yeah, this is just the start. Maybe not quite enough now, but we want more later on.
Yes, that's slightly ominous, isn't it? So the junior doctor strike that's been long running is settled for now, but this threat that perhaps they might strike again in the future, 22%. So, a big pay increase over the next couple of years. Not the 37%, which of course they were asking for, that they say was to get them back to the level of pay that they were on 15 years ago, indexed to inflation. But still a lot of money. Now, the government's argument is, look, we had to settle this because the cost to the NHS in terms of lost operations, putting things on hold when we're trying to get on top of the backlog, on top of all the very many pressing problems with the NHS, was insurmountable without cracking these doctors' strikes. Now, they have settled these strikes. They've also given money to the train drivers. I think that's even more controversial, given the train drivers are paid rather a lot in the first place, and of course they didn't get any reform from the rail bosses in exchange for that. So they've also given these above inflation pay awards to other public sector workers. Now, they were following recommendations, but that chunk of money was some £9 billion, and that's £9 billion that they chose to spend of this £22 billion black hole that they keep talking about, that the last Conservative government left. That's not quite accurate, because a big chunk of that was the choice that this government made.
OK, Catherine, thank you.
Interesting. There's you were just showing me the piece in the Daily Mail today detailing all of Keir Starmer's freebies. He was saying yesterday in a new interview that he couldn't possibly go and watch his Arsenal team at the Emirates because he's Prime Minister, unless it was a gifted hospitality ticket.
He got £23,000 worth of various tickets to Arsenal away matches, according to the Mail, that delved into the £73,000 worth of freebies. £16,200 on work clothing from Lord Ali, £2,485 on glasses, £698 for tickets to see Coldplay, £479 for Adele, £4,500 for accommodation for a holiday to the Gower in Wales, £740 for tickets to Wimbledon. The list goes on. But as you say, the FT pointing out that that was more than any other Member of Parliament.
Since 2019, indeed. Well, you can get your hands on your own lucrative haul of cash, because it's time now for the Great British Giveaway.
And it's all above board as well. But you don't have to tell the tax man. Win-win.
No investigations needed. It's the equivalent to £3,000 a month in your bank account, tax-free.
Here are the details.
This luck.
Well, stay tuned our way, because coming up, we're off to Woodford Airshow, not for any old airshow, but for their 100th anniversary. And we've sent our North West of England reporter for us, Sophie Reaper. She'll be there live in just a moment.
The Britain I grew up was the most peaceful, gentle society that has ever existed. That has been destroyed.
Opinion polls show immigration is the #1 concern to the British public.
Are you proud to be British?
Yeah, I'm ever so proud.
My name is Stephen Edgington, and in this documentary, I want to find out how Britain became a nation of immigrants. Immigration, the Truth. Available from the 19th of September at gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Michael found the recipe for success without going to university. Instead, he went looking for answers inside of a kitchen. The 22-year-old has just finished a level 2 course in professional cookery at UCB, a college in Birmingham.
When I started UCB, I was expecting to be so intense from day one, but it's not. It sort of builds up, so to the point where you get comfortable. And building that comfort is a huge part of becoming a chef, because you need to be comfortable being in your own skin.
This week, tens of thousands of students get their A-level results. The college wants them to remember university isn't the only option after school, and West Midlands Mayor Richard Parker agrees.
University is the right route for lots of our young people, but there are other pathways to getting access to qualifications that will give young people the skills they need to succeed in life.
Further education principal Rosa Wells says apprenticeships and technical courses are also great routes to a career.
Here at University College Birmingham, we offer vocational courses. These are hands-on technical courses that can give people a different opportunity, something different to school. So we've got brilliant facilities that really give students industry standard training.
A skills shortage across the UK means youngsters learning trades are desperately needed. 36% of job vacancies are due to shortages. The Labour government's new body, Skills England, has been created to bring training providers and businesses together with local and national authorities plus unions to target trade gaps and regional requirements. Michael's now finishing his qualification. Where he goes next is down to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, a special celebration of the centenary of aircraft manufacturers Aviaro creating its world-famous airfield and production facilities at Woodford, Greater Manchester, is taking place later today.
Yep, and our star reporter for the northwest of England, Sophie Reaper, is there now. Good morning, Sophie. Lucky you being there. What's going on?
Yes, good morning to you both. It's an incredible celebration here today. We're in the Avro Heritage Museum this morning, and I think if we can just give a little spin, it gives a sense of the sheer volume of craft that Avro have produced over the last century or so, and that's what today is all about. It's celebrating Avro and as well aviation as a whole. So to talk a little bit more about that now, we're joined by Frank Pleshak, who is an author and he's also a volunteer here at the museum. Frank, thank you so much for joining us on this very, very special day. 100 years, how significant is that we're marking Avro here at Woodford?
Well, Avro was the very first aircraft manufacturing company anywhere in the world. And it's 100 years today that they actually moved to this site at Woodford to start their aviation sort of airfield business. They actually manufactured aeroplanes in North Manchester, and initially they actually sent them down to London to be assembled, and then we opened up at Alexandra Park at Hough End in Manchester. But after the First World War, they had to move. They found this site at Woodford, and it's 100 years since they moved there. So yeah, very significant.
Absolutely. Now, I think our viewers at home will know Avro for two very, very special craft. The Vulcan, of course, and the Lancaster, otherwise known, of course, as the Lancaster bomber. Now, I think we can show, just over my shoulder, a replica of a Lancaster. Talk to me about the significance of crafts, the role that they've played and why they're so important and significant.
Well, the Lancaster failure. It was developed initially as a two-engined Avro Manchester. The engines were Rolls-Royce Vultures, and they just didn't work properly. And they replaced them with 4 Rolls-Royce Merlin, and it became the biggest aeroplane manufactured as a bomber in England during the Second World War. It carried the most bombs. It was the most significant bomber of all of the Second World War. They were all manufactured by Avro, mainly here at Woodford, but at other sites as well. Then after the war, of course, they continued their bomber work and they developed the Avro Vulcan, which was a big delta wing bomber.
Now, you've got a Vulcan here, haven't you? So we'll be seeing that a little bit later on. But talk to our viewers about what we can expect. I know that there's that's always very exciting. What we're going to be seeing in the flyover?
Oh, well, we've got 4 aeroplanes. We've got a Tiger Moth, which is significant of the very early era of aviation. It's a biplane aeroplane. In static, we've actually got the very first aeroplane that landed at Woodford. It was a Cirrus Moth, and that will be on display in the car park. Following that, we've got a Bristol Blenheim, which, although it's a Bristol aeroplane, they were actually manufactured here at Woodford. We made 1,000 of them. That will be followed by an Avro Anson twin-engined aeroplane. I think they made over 9,000 of those, so a very, very significant aeroplane for Avro. And then the last aeroplane ever to be delivered from the site at Woodford before it shut down was a commercial airliner that was converted into an atmospheric monitoring aeroplane that is going to be used for the next 20 or 30 years or so as a climate change research aeroplane, and that will be making a flyover as well, so very, very significant to the site.
Frank, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Very, very exciting day here at Woodford, and we're going to be bringing you all the latest as it happens here today in Greater Manchester.
OK, Sophie Reaper, thank you. We'll catch up later on during the day, I'm sure. Yeah, an amazing site up there. More than 3,000 Lancaster bombers produced up where you are and at the Chadderton factory. Anyway, a big show coming up on Britain's Newsroom. Plenty to go at with Andrew and Bev, and they're just here now. Hello, Andrew.
Well, I am.
Bev's here. She just doesn't have a chair to sit down. You want to come and help her
on the other side?
Yeah, go on the other side. Why not? Here we go.
Why not?
Sorry about that.
So let's start with you, Andrew.
Yes. Well, we'll obviously be reacting to Hugh Edwards' disgraceful verdict, disgraceful sentence, no jail sentence. Extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, really shocking, and just a slap in the face for the victims as
well. Terrible. It just enables this horrible, vicious trade in young boys and girls being exploited to continue, doesn't it?
We're going to be talking to, I don't know whether we can even get a camera on me, but we're going to be talking to a brilliant therapist who works pretty much exclusively with survivors of sexual abuse and trauma to talk about the impact, because she's so angry about this sentence and the message that it sends out to people who engage in this sort of activity.
I've read your piece in the Mail today, Andrew, talking about Starmer and his expenses. This is the shocker that keeps going on. And, you know, Lady Starmer looking very glamorous on the front of 3, at least, of the papers this morning.
I know the outfit she was wearing yesterday was borrowed. It was so it promotes a fashion line. But it's just provocative, isn't it? I don't give a hoot about the fuss about the fact my husband didn't think he had to declare £5,000 worth of freebie frocks.
Well, plenty of that coming up at 9:30. Here's the forecast in the meantime, and we'll see you at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sparkling day of sunshine for most of us. It is a bit cool out there, first thing, and it is a bit grey in a few spots, but the mist and the low cloud should tend to clear away. The breeze is picking up a little bit across Kent and along the south coast, and it's not gloriously sunny everywhere. There is quite a bit of thicker cloud across parts of northern Scotland, with even a little bit of rain and drizzle here and there. But for most places, it is a day of September sunshine, and feeling quite pleasant in that sunshine by this afternoon. Certainly warmer than last week, 19, 20, getting into the low 20s in a few spots across the southeast and probably parts of the northwest as well, though there will be still quite a bit of thick cloud across the Northern Isles, especially Shetland, well into the evening time. A little bit of drizzly rain here, and quite cloudy at times over the Western Isles, but much of the mainland of Scotland dry, fine and sunny. Same goes for Northern Ireland. Plenty of sunshine here, lasting well into this evening, and much of England and Wales too. As the easterly breeze starts to pick up, we could just start to see a bit more cloud coming in into parts of East Anglia and across the southeast in general. That will increase as we go through the night, so turning quite cloudy across these eastern areas. Some mist and fog likely through the night as well, but the thicker cloud and the rain and drizzle should clear away from Shetland, and the vast majority having a dry night. Still quite cool, temperatures well down into single figures, certainly in some rural spots. The nights, though, will get a bit warmer as we go through the rest of this week. So a bit of a grey start, maybe even parts of Wales starting a bit drab tomorrow, but I'm pretty hopeful that mist and low cloud will tend to melt away by late morning at the latest, and that will again reveal quite a bit of sunshine tomorrow. Some of these eastern coasts may stay a little misty, more of a breeze across the south tomorrow again, so perhaps feeling cooler in that breeze, but again in the sunshine, temperatures likely to get into the low 20s.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Johnny Ratner. Big problems to the south of Stirling continue for the M9. The motorway remains closed off in both directions between junction 10 and 9. The Bannockburn exit, where a police investigation is underway, really slow from the centre of Stirling as you divert. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, there are eastbound queues from junction 22 to 23 towards Huddersfield following an earlier collision that's now been moved onto the hard shoulder. In Greater Manchester, the A578, the Wigan Road, remains shut through Lee following an accident. And on the M25, there are anti-clockwise queues from Essex into Hertfordshire after a car broke down just before the Holmesdale Tunnel in the roadworks. And on the M5 in Devon, the northbound exit is partly blocked to junction 30, the Exeter exit, following an accident of long queues back along the A38. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
But let's get stuck in. Prince Harry, he's consulted former aides about a possible partial return to the UK as he seeks to repair his public image, that is according to the Daily Mail.
Who wants him? I'm sorry. This is, of course, he's got his book Spare. The paperback comes out later this year. Now, he's not updating it, but he'll want to promote it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He says he's not doing any interviews, but we're talking about him now, we're talking about Spare.
Yeah.
And is he going to come back with his wife? What about the children? Because apparently it's not safe for his wife and children in this country, according to Harry, even though he took his wife to Colombia, which is much less safe than Britain, in my view.
It's absurd. Anyway, he was able to attend his uncle's funeral quite easily.
He did.
Nobody knew he was coming. He said he wasn't, and then he did. And he was perfectly safe.
And he would have had the same security as every other member of the royal family who attended that event.
Yeah.
But, of course, he didn't speak to his brother at the funeral.
No, he wouldn't, would he?
So if he's trying to fix it, honestly, a funeral is where you should put all differences aside